What's everyone drinking tonight?
Cheap
Ooh,
Aldi wine.
As
the
I
finest
have
beers.
the finest
Bearded
of
Iris
beers.
home style from Nashville, Tennessee. It's delightful.
Nice. I have some 2 hour old Diet Coke with some Clyde Mays whiskey mixed in. That's all I had.
Nice. I could go for some cola right now. I'm drinking some Japanese whiskey that I typically drink on these, and Val will always ask me which brand of Japanese whiskey I'm drinking, and I never remember, so I decided to bring it this time around.
Which I
Very
revealed
nice.
off the recording was because I'm a fan of the Yakuza games, which honestly, they're great games. So you should go play them if you're a video game nerd
Mm.
like me.
I'm a fan of Japanese whiskey. If you're a fan of boozing like me.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, what are we here to talk about tonight?
We're here to talk about Nolan, and I almost came in hot with designing a Nolan cocktail, which would have been a gin-based cocktail, replacing the gin with tequila to represent the like good intent, but something is just kind of fundamentally wrong.
Wow.
That's perfect. That's the best way to describe him as a filmmaker.
Yeah,
I think we can cut it there. That's it.
that's it. No discussion needed. No, we're gonna this is Saw After Dark. Sorry. Raf and I do this with our friends at Screen Age Wasteland. We talk about things we want to talk about related to movies, writing, all things. And this is episode 3, Christopher Nolan edition.
Why
And
are
this
we?
was once again what?
I guess it's because there's like, is there Nolan? Does he have a movie coming out or something?
Yeah, I feel like I heard something about that. What was that movie?
Something about
You know
a
what, guys?
horse.
I was just in Greece doing some research about the new Christopher Nolan movie.
Oh my god.
Were
And you know
you?
what I learned?
What
What'd
did
you
you
learn?
learn?
That it's going to be mid.
You learned that it's going to be mid.
Yeah.
How did you learn that?
The sacred
You
text.
you know what? Yeah, I saw some old texts from Homer and whatnot. I visited some old ruins from ancient Greece, and while I was there, it was revealed to me in one way or another that the new Christopher Nolan movie was going to be mid. Um, Part of the reason that I knew that, or that it was revealed to me, is because on the plane ride over to Greece, I watched another Christopher Nolan movie, and I thought to myself, "Holy hell! All this dude does is make super mid movies."
Okay. I don't know if I'd say all his movies are mid. However, I would say his last 3 movies are kind of garbage.
We have a
Wow.
very.
I'm
This is
sorry. No, that's too hot. Reel it
look,
back.
look,
Reel it
look.
back.
I think
Take it back.
I think it's important that we recognize we have a very kind of strange subsection of Screen Age Wasteland represented here. There's a lot of folks at Screen Age Wasteland that love Nolan, and it looks like we just are a complete Nolan hater site because, especially you three, have mixed to
No, no,
really
no. I'm
negative.
not actually a Nolan hater. I think he does a lot very, very well. To be clear, when I say garbage, I recognize these are not like D tier, F tier, unwatchable films. These are still films that are by some level like standard amount of good. I'm not saying that they are like complete hot garbage, like like
Mm.
Saltburn. um, but I think I'm coming in the hot because I watched Tenet recently, like last week, and I have very strong negative feelings towards that movie. But I think in general his movies are like pretty okay. I don't actually think they're garbage. I just think that his last 3 films have been his worst.
Is this a good time to let everyone know that we're going to be making a tier list?
Tier
We
list.
will be.
So
I
we have the tier list pulled up here. Do we need an S, A, B, C, D, F, or do we need to like remove one of these like 6 categories? Or
We might leave one blank. We'll see. But before we get to that, I've come on to defend Christopher Nolan's honor.
Okay.
I don't know how I ended up in this position, but because I also am very mixed on the filmography overall. But I think, Christopher Nolan is the top of the heap for people turn out to see his movies because he made them.
Mhm.
There are other directors that have floated in and out of that status, but Christopher Nolan, since really The Dark Knight, has been like, he's going to get people to show up to the theaters consistently for every single movie. And I think that for me, like, there are some very good movies, maybe even near masterpieces in there.
Mhm.
There are some that don't really work, but to me, it just doesn't seem super productive to be all of that critical when, like, this is someone who has an artistic vision, who does
Mhm.
some things that pretty much no one else is able to do in terms of like the creation of set pieces and creating spectacle. I think he's clearly distinguished himself, and it shows in the group of people that he turns out every single time who are like, oh, there's a new Christopher Nolan movie, we have to go see this in theaters in the best possible format. So yeah, I mean, are there bad movies in there? Sure. But I don't know that, I just like hold back a little bit from like, let's bring this guy down a peg, because like, why? Why are we trying to bring the one director who's getting good turnout every single time and doing well at the box office down a peg? Like, let people enjoy it. I think there are things to enjoy. I will go see every single movies. He's not one of my favorite directors, but I think enough of them are good, and there's enough in each one that's worth seeing that I sort of want to catch them at this point. So that's sort of where I'm at, and somehow I've become a Chris Nolan, the most unlikely of Chris Nolan defenders on this podcast. But
I think you're right, though. I mean,
yeah.
to be clear, I did want to highlight like Christopher Nolan's strengths. I think he's a really good story crafter. I think in terms of telling one very complete story that doesn't feel like, oh, we got lost in the sauce in the details. I think there are several movies he does that incredibly well. I think in the way that he plays with time, and particularly in like Memento and Following, it's really effective, and we really don't see directors do that the way he does it commonly. So to be clear, like, yeah, I'm being kind of a Nolan hater, but I do think there are things he does very, very well. I just also think there are things he does very not well that he seems to, particularly in his more recent films, not be aware that these are not his strengths, and keeps playing into like character writing, and his characters are like ocean wide puddle deep, and that kind of takes away from his pretty good story crafting, in my opinion.
He does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll echo that just a bit to say there's one thing in particular that I feel is pretty much missing from any Nolan movie. But there's some movies where that matters less, and those are more of what are close to masterpieces. And there's some movies where I think that is more apparent and more needed to the story. And when that's more necessary, that's why they take a dip, because there's a certain quality that's missing, which is to me, all of his movies feel kind of cold and sterile. And that doesn't hurt all of his movies. And that's not to say it's always that way, but some of his movies, it's less of an impact. And one movie in particular, I think it really kind of cuts it short.
What movie is that, to help me understand what you're talking about?
Well, in particular, I think Interstellar, I think, is a very interesting story craft, but for a movie that is kind of all about how love transcends time and space, I just cannot feel any like real warmth or heart.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
it doesn't come
totally
through the
agreed.
screen.
But he's trying very hard to do what you were saying that he can't do in that movie. So I
Right.
think he does want to connect in that way in a lot of his stuff. But yeah, I think Interstellar is one of the ones that really does not work for me, that a lot of people love. And it's exactly for that reason. Like the message of love conquers space and times is very cheeseball to begin with, and the execution does it no favors in that movie. And so yeah, it really gets to the place. So I think I agree with that, but he is really trying to connect, I think, on a character and emotional level in almost every film. So like the cold and sterile thing is more just because he's not really good at it than that he's not trying. But sometimes he does like end up doing
I think
that
there are a
pretty
few
well.
times where it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the stories. What I was trying to say, I guess, too, is I think in Interstellar, because of how obvious like the importance of that connection is to hit, it really stands out. Whereas, I just watched Memento today. Like there is a bit of an emotional connection there that you need. But the way that everything unfolds, it just feels like, um, it's not. And I think he does it better in Memento than some others. But I feel like that one is more a little more procedural for me. And it doesn't matter quite as much. Maybe because, um, the wife's never actually on screen really, except for a few flashbacks. So
I'm sure we'll get into how it plays out in both of those movies in particular when we like actually go into rankings. But just to peel back the curtain a little bit, I will continue to play the role of the ultimate Christopher Nolan skeptic, maybe not full hater, because I do think that there are things that he does as a filmmaker, to Brian's points, to Val's points, Jacob's points, that are great. But I think that he's more confusing of a director than we as like movie audiences give him credit for. I think that's my main concern, is that as audience members, I hate the way that we respond to Christopher Nolan movies where it's like he can do no wrong, where I've seen him do a lot of wrong across a lot of movies, which is totally fine. Filmmakers are allowed to have ups and downs, but he's seen as this mega titan of the industry who is like a flawless filmmaker. And I do think that, every time he makes a movie, it's worthwhile for us to go see. But I also think that's true of people like PTA and Steven Spielberg, who like Steven Spielberg has made like 3 really great movies in the last 10 years, and he doesn't still get the same kind of draw that Christopher Nolan does, where Christopher Nolan's movies that he's made in the last 10 years have had more downs, I think, than the Spielberg movies that we've seen in the last 10
Yeah.
years. So I think for me, that's like where the disconnect between me as an audience member and like the rest of film going audiences and Christopher Nolan resides. Like that's where that gulf is, where I feel like I walk out of certain movies of his and I'm like, okay, that was kind of mid. I think we can all agree that that was fairly mid. But then I'm made to feel like a crazy person for saying that. And that's where my, confusion comes in. But then there are other times where I watch
You
certain movies
you
and I'm like,
should feel like a crazy person, Raph, at all times.
not for my Nolan
And
takes,
on
just
this
in general.
point as well, because I was really hoping someone would argue with me on this. So this is great. Yeah, this is what I was going for. So thank you, Raph. Why do we need to bring Nolan down a peg? Why can't we just champion Spielberg and Spike Lee and these other directors who are doing consistently great work, and we can promote, while like maybe if you don't like the Chris Nolan movie as much, you don't talk about it as much, you don't include it on your like top movies of the year, but just like let people have their thing. Like why can't you just like let people have their fun?
I think they should, but also I want them to have better fun. Like I think people deserve better than Interstellar.
You want to control the types of fun that people have.
No, I want to live in a world where like no one needs to think that Inception is the best movie that they've ever seen, or like
I
no one needs to think that The Dark Knight is the best comic book movie that's ever been made. Like
I'm
I think that people deserve better than that, and I'd want them to have that. And in order to
They
do
seem to
so,
be having a grand old time though. Like we can give them other stuff that maybe will change their opinions on
I'm
that.
glad you brought up Inception, because I think that there is a cultural thing about Christopher Nolan movies that spawned with the Inception, and it was this idea that if you enjoy Christopher Nolan movies, you are inherently somehow smarter because you get it. And part of me wonders if this has fueled the impulses in him that ended up being Tenant, because there is sort of this need to make things complex. And I actually think I'll give Interstellar this. I think that Interstellar's internal logic makes sense. I don't think it requires that much deep concentration and thought to follow what's happening in the story. Whereas like Tenet is just so full of plot holes that you just kind of give up like 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
But I part of me wonders if that has to do with some of the hype. It's not that like, and I'm not saying that people aren't just enjoying these movies for what they are, because I think they are, but I think that there is sort of a idea that comes with it of, I enjoy Christopher Nolan movies because I'm smart and I'm an intellectual movie enjoyer, as opposed to those people who go see Minions and Monsters who are not intellectuals like me. And I think that that's part of it too.
in doing the rewatches for this particular exercise, part of my biggest frustration with Christopher Nolan, I think you guys have kind of touched on this, is the fact that he just like doesn't lean into his strengths. He's amazing at setting up set pieces and giving us great action scenes.
Hmm.
And he could make such fun, cool blockbuster movies if he just leaned into that. And I think his best moments are when he does lean into that.
Hmm.
Um, but his movies are so often plagued by trying to be a version of themselves that they think they need to be, and not being the version of themselves that they just should be, and that the movie lends itself towards being. I think that's a problem that I have with Oppenheimer, with Tenet, with
Oh, I
Inception,
forgot that Oppenheimer was him.
with The
Yeah.
Dark Knight. Like, I think all of those movies could be excellent, excellent to
Yeah.
spectacular movies, maybe even masterpieces, if they just played out as the movies that they should be, as opposed to the versions of those movies that like Christopher Nolan thinks they need to be.
Mhm.
He's trying too hard. He does try too hard. But I don't think I'm willing to give grace to trying too hard much more than I am to give grace for not trying hard enough. And so I think on that degree, and I actually sort of really like the direction he's gone post Tenet, which I thought was terrible. I really like Oppenheimer. I think the Odyssey is good. My main issue with Nolan has been like the need to have these really complex puzzle box plots,
Mhm.
and they like this mind-blowing concept and these twists at the end and all of this stuff. And by working with um non-original material, I think he's solved some of that, of just like working in historical biopic, now
Mhm.
taking on the Odyssey, which is a classic story. Like that's the direction that I want him to be going. Like use material that can support these big set pieces and the visual storytelling that he's really good at, the nuclear test sequence, whatever he's going to throw at us in the Odyssey, but just like tell somebody else's story and tell it really well. And
Yeah.
I like that.
You know,
I
there's
That
an
think that's a great
direction a lot
interesting
point.
better.
there's an interesting contrast to what obviously Nolan has like become this kind of, like you said, he's the director that draws people the most, and he's doing blockbusters right now, and has been for some time. But having just seen Memento, which is I think still maybe his highest rated movie on Letterboxd. Um, it's interesting because that movie is not about big set pieces, and yet it's so good. And I haven't had the opportunity to see Following yet, but I wonder if for me Nolan might not work best in that kind of noir, modern noir type vibe. And if
I
that
think
would
you'd
be
be
where I would like
surprised
to
how
see him.
similar. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
No, I just wanted to comment that I think you'd be surprised how similar Following is to Memento in a lot of ways.
Well, it makes sense because Following was his first feature film, and then Memento was the follow up. So I guess that makes some sense. I also wanted to comment too. Does anyone else feel like I think when Inception came out, it was the big thing, obviously, and everyone was like, Inception is the movie. And then Interstellar came out, and it transitioned to becoming Interstellar is the movie, and now even like 12 years later, people still talk about Interstellar that way, and it kind of took over for Inception. Like, I mean, people still like Inception, but I don't feel like I feel like Interstellar kind of took its place, which is just kind of an interesting thought that came so quickly on the
Yeah.
hills, because at the time it was like Inception is the
Inception was
masterpiece.
like a cultural moment and like huge in theater movie, and Interstellar was a little bit more of a slow burn, and people like over the next 5-10 years really claiming it. I don't think it did quite as well at the box office as some of the other ones. I think it did well, but I can't recall exactly how well it did. But yeah, it seems like that's like something that people on Letterboxd have claimed over time more than was an immediate sensation like Inception. And maybe that's why people sort of get tired of stuff. And so if something was an immediate sensation in 2010, then maybe they're sick of it now.
Should we start ranking these suckers?
Yeah, let's get into it because we're starting to talk about individual movies anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've gotten off the Nolan as a whole, and I'm sure
Yeah.
our Nolan
But
as a whole
yeah,
thoughts will continue
you
to
all
pop up.
suck for organizing this podcast with the like Nolan is mid as a
We're
topic.
just trying to
And
counterbalance. I think there are 8 Christopher Nolan movies in the canon, which is absurd.
Yeah,
He
'cause
should
there's
not
only
have-
12 of them.
He should not be the most celebrated director that we have in the canon. And this is a platform where I can speak a little bit freely and a little bit looser than I do on the canon. Like, there's no way, shape, or form that we should be celebrating Christopher Nolan as the definitive filmmaker of all time within the history of filmmaking. That he should be more celebrated than Steven Spielberg and Akira Kurosawa and Martin Scorsese and like all of these other folks. Spike Lee barely has Do the Right Thing in the canon, and Christopher Nolan gets 8 movies. Are you kidding me? No, this is absurd. We are here.
Wait, did it take
create
a
a
long time to
counterbalance.
get Do the Right Thing in the canon?
Yeah, we had to like fully petition Duke to change the rules for how it is that we do the canon because there were 6 Christopher Nolan movies and 0 Spike Lee movies.
That is a little.
So yeah, I think I need to be here as someone to bring Christopher Nolan down a peg because
Okay, sorry to bother you in the canon next.
please, what are we doing? He's good, but
Do the Right Thing is a better movie than anything Christopher Nolan's made.
Yes.
But
the easiest statement of all time.
yeah, very easy statement. But I don't think we need to like. I mean, eight movies in the canon may be a little excessive, but it feels like we just need to add more movies to the canon to get other directors equal. It doesn't feel to me like we need to like take Christopher Nolan movies out.
You're doing this isn't a zero-sum game kind of approach to Christopher Nolan, where I feel that we need to bring him down in order to even things out and make it more equitable across the board in terms of how it is that we look at movies as a whole.
It is very IMDb coded to have like Christopher Nolan as the best director of all time.
I've only seen 8 of 12 Nolan movies, and I'm struggling to understand how there are 8 in the canon.
It occurs to me that the last Nolan movie I saw in theaters, and this is true, was The Dark Knight Rises. And after that, I guess I just kind of subconsciously went, I will never see another Nolan movie in theaters because I didn't see Interstellar or Oppenheimer or Tenet until they hit streaming.
Off the top of your head, what are the 8 Nolan movies in the canon?
Dunkirk, The Prestige, Memento, Inception, The Dark
Like-
Knight. I want to say Interstellar, and okay, so maybe there are only 6. And then I think we voted Batman Begins in, but then it was removed.
Batman Begins is good, but not great.
There's
I
no
will
need
say
for that to be in a canon. I would
But
take out
there was
Interstellar.
historical, like, I would definitely take out Interstellar, but like
I
there
would
was
take out
historical,
Inception.
like, you know, Batman Begins kind of like brought in the dark, gritty
Yeah.
superhero film
yeah.
into the genre. So I can see an argument for that.
But you have the Dark
The-
Knight there.
yeah.
So you
The
don't need-
canon,
you don't need
though,
both.
Raph, the canon is not meant to be the greatest movies of all time necessarily. It's meant to be more of like an entry point into great films for
Mhm.
people who are more familiar maybe with popular blockbuster type of stuff. So I think Chris Nolan as an entry point into that makes sense, not as much as like Spielberg makes sense as an entry point.
Yeah, but
into that.
you probably only need 3 Christopher Nolan movies to understand cinema within the 21st century. If we're talking about the most essential movies ever made and like how it is that he has informed the rest of filmmaking. Like really, you can just do it with The Dark Knight
Mhm.
and Memento. Honestly.
Memento especially, and like we'll get to it, but I'm going to argue pretty hard for a high ranking for Memento. I think it might be his best movie for me.
Yeah.
personally.
What movie should we start the tier maker with?
Let's
Oh, we
start
do-
chronologically.
yeah, let's do chronologically. Let's start with
chronologically would be fun.
following.
Yeah.
Or
It's
should we
been
do the
forever
Memento
since
method
I've
and
seen
start reverse
following.
chronologically? Should we
We
go
ping pong
Sure
back
we
and
did.
forth.
Yeah.
We'll meet
No,
in the
start with
middle.
Oppenheimer.
Meet in the middle.
Memento
Yeah.
method?
Yeah.
That's actually
Alright.
As
beautiful.
an honor to the structure of Memento. Let's
Let's
do it.
do it.
I'm
Do
into
it.
that. I'm into that. So do we start at the beginning or the end?
We start in the
I
middle,
think
then we go back to the beginning, and then we
end.
go to the end, and then but also it's all happening at the same time because love is the 5th dimension.
I think
It's a
we should start with
it's a reverse pincer movement. The order.
Oh my god,
Temporal
shut
pincer
up.
That's it. Temporal pincer
Oppenheimer.
movement.
Oppenheimer is officially first, and then we'll do following.
Okay,
and
this is
ping
going to
pong.
be where we start fighting. I think Oppenheimer is a good movie.
I actually do too. I would agree with
okay.
Bryan on that.
All right. Who are the
So-
Oppenheimer haters here? Someone said they didn't like Oppenheimer. Yeah.
It's
that's
Raph.
fine.
Raph is
Okay.
the odd man out. I like
Make the
Oppenheimer-
case.
Yeah.
Make the case, Raph, for a
Make
low
us hate
ranking.
Oppenheimer.
So I think the issue with Oppenheimer is sort of what I was saying before, where Chris is doing this thing where the movie presents itself as something that he thinks it's supposed to be. And I don't even know if there is like a really good version of Oppenheimer within it. I think it's like always going to be a fairly conventional movie, even if you present it in this out of order, non-sequential, non-linear storyline with some things in black and white and some things in color, and the black and white is the objective and the color is the subjective, and it all comes to this culmination where Robert Downey Jr.'s character ruins Oppenheimer's life because of a misread slight or whatever. I just think that it's always going to be a fairly like boring conventional movie that is going to read like really great on Sunday afternoon on TNT, but was not the like mind-blowing huge shakeup to film as we understand it kind of movie that it announces itself to be. I think the best part of that movie is the score. I think the score carries 80% of what makes that movie good. I think Cillian Murphy's really
You're-
great in it.
You're critiquing more what other people have said about the movie than the movie itself. With
No,
what
no,
you're
this
saying
is
what I'd say, because
this is
to
what the
me, it's
movie
a lot
says
of
it is.
People talking in rooms. It's a drama. I think there are those elements of like time jumping, the black and white, and the different, timelines and stuff. But if you just watch it without like really closely paying attention, the movie is still legible, I think. And I think a lot of how it was received was like, this is, the heir to the throne, and we're going to clear the way for Best Picture, might be coloring how you're talking about the movie and feeling that it needs to be brought down a peg.
I understand what you're saying, but I do want to reassure you that it's more so that I'm reading that as how the movie presents itself to me, where it is announcing itself as something that needs the path cleared for it to be anointed the next great thing in cinema, where it's very look at me, ooh, isn't this so fancy that we're doing this black and white and color mix of nonlinear storytelling? Isn't this a crazy way to present and approach a biopic that I think ultimately ends up being a fairly conventional movie and is like pretty solid? But I think if it just did that, it could be more enjoyable. Or if it didn't announce itself to me as something that was like going to be a game changer. I do still think that there are enjoyable elements within it. I think it's like this is like the same movie as like Ford v Ferrari. Like very good on a Sunday afternoon on TNT. Good stuff. I'm glad that we did it. It's not necessarily for me, but like we don't need to I don't need you to be anything other than that.
I'd say the difference between this and Ford versus Ferrari is the stakes and the message of what it's trying to deal with is very different of talking about nuclear warfare and how we got where we are and essentially the chain reaction that's going to end the world. So like the topic is grand enough to support some of the filmmaking choices that I feel like you're not responding to. That's where I'd land on it. But it's been a while since I've seen it.
I think that's valid.
My take on Oppenheimer is going to be kind of different out of left field, I guess. I came away from Oppenheimer just for I've only seen it once in the theater. Um, my walking away from Oppenheimer, I considered it really good, maybe great. One of my favorite movies from that year. My issue with Oppenheimer was the first third of the movie felt a little choppy to me. A lot of the fast dialogue, there was a lot of stuff to get in there for um, trying to lay this groundwork for Oppenheimer's life. And this rapid fire dialogue going on just did not really work for me that well. And then the second act, of course, where they're like at Los Alamos digging into the, science and the philosophy of building the bomb and what they're doing. To me, that works really well. And then the third act for me, even though it's not everyone's cup of tea, this kind of more legal battle, kind of interpersonal battle between Oppenheimer and Strauss, um, also works really well. I don't know how well those two things jibe in the same movie. It kind of feels like two very different parts of Oppenheimer's life. I'm not sure, but I will say the ending, where they do finally get to that scene between Oppenheimer and Einstein, that is the chain reaction line to end the movie, like that was so strong that it kind of covered up a lot of flaws for me and boosted my walk away feeling with the movie. Um, but yeah, I mean, the Trinity test was a really, a very effective, cool set piece. I really thought the scene with Oppenheimer's freak out giving the speech, I actually thought that scene was very effective. I really liked that a lot. Everything in between was like really good, solid. I like a good back and forth legal drama kind of depositions deal, and I liked seeing Oppenheimer deal with some of the fallout of, what he had done. The other thing with Oppenheimer is for a movie that's all about a person, you still feel like you can't get under the surface with Oppenheimer. Um, which is interesting because I mean Oppenheimer was a very hard person to know, apparently, and to understand. But you're kind of watching the story in some ways through his life, but you still feel like you can't quite fully get in, which kind of maybe holds it back just a little bit. But I thought it was very good.
The only sex scene in Christopher Nolan's filmography as well. So we
to
have
talk
it
about
confirmed that Christopher Nolan has heard of sex.
He's at least heard of it.
He's heard of it. He's heard it described, at least.
To tie it back to the last Wasteland After Dark, there we go.
Yeah, we talked about sex scenes in movies, but that was actually the first thing I ever heard about Oppenheimer before I saw it. Is I watched a YouTube video by commentator Little Joel, where he was complaining about the sex scene and how ridiculous it is, and he describes it in pretty painstaking detail, and I was like, "Oh Lord!" But then I think because I went in with that expectation, I thought it was pretty good. I think that the scenes that worked for me overshadowed the ones that I thought were kind of meh. I think though that related to what Jacob was saying about like none of the characters, like even particularly Oppenheimer, feeling fully known, despite the fact that Cillian Murphy is an amazing actor and does a great performance in the movie. I think that the character writing across the entire filmography is just so weak. You never really get a real sense for any of his characters who they really are beyond like a certain kind of very measured level. And I think that that continues to be true in Oppenheimer. Despite that, though, I did still really enjoy it. And if I had to rank it, I'd probably be like B or maybe even A if I'm including some of the scenes that thinking of like the Trinity sequence, which I thought was really good.
The
I don't
Trinity
know.
sequence is incredible. To quickly piggyback off what Jake was saying about the first part of the movie, I think I'm now realizing part of my distaste for this movie is that it leans into one of my least favorite things about Nolan movies, which is like an aggressive amount of cross-cutting with the score just like blaring in your face while characters are talking through either exposition or something sort of like exposition adjacent while cross-cutting with scenes of like other people doing other things, which I can deal with every now and then, but Christopher Nolan movies are so full of them, and every time it makes me kind of want to kill myself because it just I don't want to say it's a cheap way of filmmaking, but it's just not something that like always feels super cinematic to me when watching his movies. And I think Oppenheimer does a lot of that. And that is with me thinking that the score in Oppenheimer is the best part of the movie, which I think might be a theme for me across some other Christopher Nolan movies.
And
So
Raph,
with
you
everything
triggered.
we
Sorry, I'm going to lose it if I don't say this. Raph
go for
triggered
it.
because it's been a few years since I've seen it. When I was talking about the rapid fire dialogue, the way you said the cross cutting reminded me what exactly it was that really stuck out to me. Where that no other Nolan film I've seen has stuck out to me like this. It was like the characters were like almost in profile, being like, "I'm saying this thing to you now," and then it would cut to the other character being like, "And I'm saying this back to you," and it would be like, "Cut, cut, cut, cut," and I'm like,
Very Sorkin-esque,
this is a
honestly.
very weird. It doesn't feel natural at all to me. Like it feels very. Here's a character saying this, and here's a character saying this back. It didn't have any like rhythm or flow to it in the early stages, so that was
Interesting.
something that kind of put me off. But it's been a while since I've watched it, so that could be a slightly distorted memory, which as we know from some of other Nolan's films, memory can be a workable thing.
I was
All
going
right,
to say,
I'd put it in A tier. I can live with B tier
yeah, I was going to say
if
B
Raph wants to
tier.
bump it down to tier.
If Raph bumps it down a tier,
Wh-
then it would be B. I would say A or B.
Okay, I was going to
I
say C, but I think in this discussion, I'm realizing that I am maybe a bit softer on Oppenheimer than I came out of the gates, being. I
So
came
can
out of the
we
gates
agree
very
on B
aggressive.
tier then for
I,
Oppenheimer?
I can live with B tier for Oppenheimer for sure because the score is so good. I listen to that score all the time. Let me tell you,
S
The
tier
and I
scenes
would
for me that
also
work.
S tier score, F tier performance from Robert Downey Jr. though. Gosh, that performance sucks. A tier from Cillian Murphy or Cillian Murphy, however it is that we want to pronounce it.
Billion.
Yeah, so it has a lot of things going for it. Has a lot of things not going for it. It's cool that Josh Peck gets to be the guy who pushes the button for the bomb to go off during the Trinity test. It's cool that Benny Safdie is doing like a weird German accent. There are things.
It's really not. We don't need to keep putting Benny Safdie in things. Is my take. Like he can go do like behind the camera stuff. Why do we need to make this man an actor? It
All
does
right.
not need to happen.
But we got through one movie.
So
We have
we got
11
through-
more to go.
All right,
we're
Nice.
putting it in
B tier.
B tier.
B tier. All right.
B tier.
tier.
That's the
All right. I'm good with
official.
that.
That works.
That's fine.
Are we going following next?
following.
Ooh.
Yeah. Following next.
Okay.
This is gonna be shorter. It's been
Yeah, because it's
forever
just
since I've seen it, but you've seen it most recently, Val, right? So you can
yeah.
lead us maybe.
I think that I went in with such low expectations because so many tier lists that I read put this at the bottom, but I think it's largely pretty decent. I mean, it's obviously incredibly low budget, but it's like a tight hour 15-minute movie and I think it largely works. I liked this one. Like, yes, the characters are like nothing people, just like Memento, but we'll get there. But I think within the context of a story where it's just like, this is about a heist, this is about robbers, this is about what they're doing, what they're saying, what they're plotting. It sort of doesn't matter that they're nothing people. And honestly, it sort of benefits the plot because maybe if they weren't nothing people, they'd be super unlikable. So like it's a very cat and mouse tight little movie and I really liked it. I think
Yeah.
I gave it like 3.5 stars or something like that on Letterboxd. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I don't remember a ton. I remember it being a little less ambitious, which I think for Christopher Nolan is sort of a good thing, and maybe Raph, what you wanted Oppenheimer to be, of like not trying too hard. It's his first movie. It's an indie, very low budget thing. So
Mhm.
I'd say probably C tier, maybe B tier.
Yeah, it was made for under $10,000. It's a very low budget movie, and considering that, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd say C tier. I'd
C
even be
tier.
willing to
Yeah,
bump
let's
it
lock
up
it
to
in.
B if I was
Yeah.
feeling generous, but yeah, C tier.
Jacob, you've also seen it, but it's been a while.
No, I have
Remember
not.
it?
I have
You've
not seen
not
this
seen
one.
it. Okay. All
This is
right.
one of 4 I have not seen.
What do you think about B or C tier then?
I guess let's do C just because it is low
Yeah.
budget and like I mean it suffers from that, but I think for a debut movie it's pretty great. Like
Yeah, he's
honestly.
figuring stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah.
C tier. That makes sense
Here we
to me.
are. We have placed it in C tier. Okay. So that's what the next is. Tenet.
Oh dear.
Tenet.
Oh,
This
boy.
movie is bad.
This
Yeah,
movie
this is a bad
hot.
movie.
You know, Raph
Yeah.
told me this movie's hot ass, and he was 100% right. I was so mad the entire time I was watching this movie. I was
Why did I
Jacob,
ruin
do you
my
like
flight?
Tenet? I don't know that we're gonna need to argue about this one. Tenet is a bad movie.
But we need to
Yeah,
talk about
it
what makes
doesn't
it
work.
bad.
Yeah.
I will say Kenneth Branagh's performance and John David Washington's performances are pretty great. The script is ass. It's not their fault that the script is ass. I think that John David Washington in the scenes where he gets to emote is really great. But he doesn't get to emote
Oh.
very often. He's just playing like I am the protagonist.
That's
blah
funny.
blah blah.
I feel like because of his acting style and skill set, he's very well suited for a really bland, boring character and just name the protagonist who doesn't emote a lot.
I
Like,
don't
I
know.
feel
I
like that,
liked
like,
him in Black Klansman so much more.
but he's also kind of doing a bland thing there. And those are the movies that work for him when he's like trying to seriously emote, like in Malcolm and Marie or whatever.
Oh,
He's
I've seen that.
awful. He's like
Oh,
really bad in those
no.
situations, but in things like this where he gets to be kind of stiff, it totally works for him. And I agree where when Kenneth Branagh gets to be really weird and out there, it really works for him. And when Robert Pattinson gets to be a little gay, it works for him. So like all 3 of those guys are in roles that work for them, but they
Yeah.
don't work together within the semblance of this movie.
I guess what I meant is that in the oh no, we lost Bryan. But no, I think what oh no, you're still here.
All right.
What I was going to say is that in the torture scene in Tenet, I think John David Washington is really, really good. Like he has to kind of cry and like be subtle about it. And I think that's his best scene in the entire movie, and it's right at the beginning. So oops. But the movie just really suffer. The plot is very bad. The script is very bad. It really suffers from just plot hole central. It's really like the whole inversion idea is really like, don't think too hard about it. Don't think too hard about it, because if you think about it even a little bit, it falls apart. And it's just, I feel like this could have been a good movie if it was just like a regular time travel movie. I think that would have been marginally better.
For me, it's the worst version of like, I have this grand concept that I'm going to try to execute, but any sort of examination beneath the surface level to this grand concept to the movie that he's set up reveals that it doesn't really make sense at all, and the movie doesn't really try to explain or make it make sense, which but it just doesn't need to be doing so much. Like if you're going to not explain, you know, what's going on, then just like don't go there, don't do it. Just make a normal James Bond movie if that's like what you're going for. It doesn't need all of this.
I want to hear Jacob's thoughts, but I think the biggest sin of this movie is the line, don't try to understand it, just feel it, which is supposed to be the entire way that you're supposed to approach this movie. Val, one of our favorite video essayists on YouTube, Patrick Willems, has a video about how Tenet is one of the greatest vibes movies of all time, which is such a horrendous take from someone whose film takes I respect and love and adore.
He's from my
so much.
hometown. Like, I feel like we have a special connection, but I guess not.
Yeah.
I
get it as a response to like Nolan over explaining things constantly, that when Tenet came along and he didn't try to over explain it, some people were like, yes, that's what I want, but it's just like, just don't do the big concept. That doesn't make sense.
On shrooms watching this, maybe I would like it.
I think I'm fine with the big concept, and I'm fine with not trying to understand it and just feeling it. The issue is there's nothing to feel in this movie. There's no vibes in this movie. If there are good vibes, if we fully lean into this is an eternal cycle of a bromance between Pattinson and John David Washington, like I am so for that. And I don't have to think about the plot holes or inconsistencies with the logic of the time travel that they're building. If it's just about these two dudes broing out for all of time and like those are the vibes that I'm getting from the movie, I'm for that. The issue is this movie totally fails in that regard. So then you're just stuck trying to understand how it is that inversion works. And then you walk away being very dissatisfied with the entire viewing experience.
Well, yeah, because the characters are not interesting enough to justify that kind of bromance. At the end, you don't really feel any chemistry that you feel between the characters is because Robert Pattinson and John David Washington are pretty good actors, and not because the script creates any kind of actual like warmth between them, and that kind of sucks. And I think that is true for other Christopher Nolan movies as well, but we will get there. He casts really really good actors and it helps his movies. So I guess we can.
Hey, did y'all know that Tenet spelled backwards is still Tenet?
Yep.
I haven't seen this movie because of
don't watch it. It'll ruin
reviews
your day.
like this. It hasn't really been at the
You
top
don't
of my
need
list.
to see it. Yeah.
So
F tier is good. I think we all dislike
good.
this a lot. Yeah.
There's like half an interesting visual that's created with the inversion too, and you're like, oh cool, that car crashed backwards.
There's some the set pieces are legitimate. I could be convinced into D tier just on the strength of those, but I'm angry enough at this movie that
temporal pincer move is cool enough.
The anger
appropriate.
Let's go to the probably better timey-wimey movie, Memento.
Okay, I'm going to argue hard for S tier for this one because I think it's Nolan's best movie and it's not even close.
We were chatting about this before the episode, and I mentioned that when I was in high school, this was one of like the cool DVDs to own, to have on your like shelf of like the 5 DVDs that you could afford at the time in high school. And I definitely had the Memento DVD and wore that thing out. And so I agree, it's S tier. I think there are other movies that I loved at the time that haven't remained as strong for me, but I think the real difference in this one is like the vibes that we were talking about being lacking in Tenet are so present here with all of the like Polaroid stuff, the tattoos, the Stephen Tobolowsky of it all, who is delightful. So yeah, Memento to me is his best movie, and I think it's a little bit of a like sentimental personal pick because of how much it meant to me like back in the day, and like getting into indie movies for the first time and being like, oh well, like there are movies that do big box office, but have you heard of like these sort of things? So along with like the Tarantino and Coen's movies and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like this was right in there around that time, and for me it's his best film.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to touch on what I said about Nolan having weak characters, because I think that is actually still true in Memento, but I think it actually serves it better because the fact that the main character is sort of a nothing guy makes the film more watchable, because I think if he weren't a nothing guy, he would be like the most unlikable asshole ever. And because he's sort of nothing, we get to just watch him do cool stuff and we're like, "Whoa, this is awesome." It it's amazing. It's sort of like all of Nolan's strengths and weaknesses come together to make like this is his wheelhouse. Like he should be making more movies like Memento, and I really wouldn't have much bad to say about him. Like I think this is all of his strengths put together. Pretty much everything about it works. I rewatched this one very recently and I was like, yeah, this one holds up. It's really great.
I just finished watching this like an hour before we started. So I don't know that I completely understand all of it. I haven't had time to process it thoroughly, much less rewatch it.
Don't try to
but
understand it, just feel it.
Have you had time to Google Memento ending explained?
a
Have you
little
read any
bit.
cracked articles about it?
A little bit. I after it finished, I had just enough time to browse the Wikipedia to make sure I didn't, see what I missed and try and watch for it on the rewatch. Um,
But have you
one of the
checked
things
out
that
the r/movie details page of this movie?
not yet. I didn't want to be too prepared. The uh the thing I liked about this is I've been a kind of a critic. I think Pulp Fiction is a bit overrated, and I don't think that the nonlinear storytelling in Pulp Fiction, although it's cool, it's neat, it doesn't really provide that much. Whereas Memento, the backwards telling of this contributed so much to like now you're seeing something that happened before, and you're like, oh my god, that's not good for what we saw previous, like what went on before. So, which is actually after. So I mean, just that nature of it, it was very cool. It seemed like it all fit together very well. I mean, the tattoo idea is a cool visual. The Polaroid deal, even the opening shot's just cool. Watching him shake the Polaroid and it disappearing, and that just sets the tone. Um, and I mean, it was a great time, and I was just fully locked into the vibe of it. And it's pretty distinctive from later Nolan stuff that has all this, huge blockbuster and the set pieces, which some of that I think is better than others, but it was cool, seeing such a lower budget, more just gritty film, and just a couple guys in some hotel rooms and some cars.
Yeah.
Nothing major going on. No real Hollywood. I would be fine with putting this in S tier. We'll see what Raph has to say.
Yeah, well, Brian, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, it's also like legitimately edgy. Like the dressing down that Carrie Ann Moss gives him is like, whoa, where did that come from? And like, no, there are no sex scenes. So maybe he has not discovered sex yet at this point in his filmography.
But he
But
has heard of bras.
like it is, oh yeah, he's heard of bras, apparently. And yeah, it's like it's pessimistic enough and like sort of mean in a way that his films don't get after this point, in a way that I really think works to the movie's benefit.
Yeah, it's funny that it comes out in 2000 because it kind of feels more like a 1999 movie in how mean and pessimistic it is. But this script structure of this is perfect for the concept, right? It's the perfect marriage of concept and creating an interesting sort of puzzle that we get to follow along as audience members, and the two lend themselves to each other in such a beautiful way that it ends up being such a dynamite watch. Like, the pacing of this is fantastic, and you never think about watching a mystery thriller puzzle unfold in this sort of format. But with this condition that the character has, it makes sense that we are learning these things about him as a character and about the story, and how it is that we get to that end point where Joey Pants is, getting his dome blown off or whatever. Like, watching that story play out in reverse is perfect for this particular concept of a movie. And I don't think that there's ever, well, I do think that there's maybe one other marriage of those two things that is maybe a little bit better in his filmography, but I kind of agree that this should be S tier. I think it's in my personal A tier, but rewatching this recently after not seeing it in years, I was worried, like, man, is Memento going to hold up? And I was blown away. I was probably more blown away watching it now than I was when I watched it for the first time as a 14-year-old, or like when me and my buddies would watch it after taking fat bong rips in our dorm room. Like, I was absolutely stunned by this. And I think, Val, to your point about him being a nothing character, like, totally works, because like, he is a loser, and it makes sense for this guy to be a loser and to be a nothing, empty vessel of a character, of a human being, based on everything that he does in it. And like Bryan was saying, it makes for that kind of mean-spirited ending that totally works for this particular movie, where you're like, oh, this guy is like hopeless in his pursuit of his dead wife, which again is something we know pops up time and time again in Christopher Nolan movies. But this is probably the best use of it, because you're like, oh, this guy trying to do something for his dead wife is just the biggest loser of all time, which in a weird way lends itself to Nolan's strengths and weaknesses for a good effect, I would say.
Perfectly balanced.
Yeah. Great movie.
Awesome.
All right, we
we're
got
moving
an
right
S tier
along.
movie.
Yes,
See,
we
we're not
do.
total haters.
All right. So next on the list we would have Dunkirk, right? I think Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
Oh.
Yeah, interesting. So I could start with this one. This came out at a time where I was getting really sick of like the twist endings and big concepts, so I sort of liked that it wasn't going for that. It was very acclaimed at the time and a lot of people liked it. I'm not a huge war movie person, so it didn't super resonate to me, just because like war movie stuff and set pieces isn't really like what I gravitate towards. But I think it is fairly decent, so it's not one of my big ones, but I think it doesn't suffer from a lot of the pitfalls of some of his other stuff by being just pretty much entirely set pieces, which we all, I think, agree he's pretty good at.
I think for me, this is his best movie. I think in terms
Oh.
of him exploring temporal perception, I think this is the best example of that, because it strips away all of the preconceived notions of like, we need to have characters, they need to have emotions, they need to have some kind of drive. No, let's just strip all of that away and just have an experiment in how it is that we understand time, and also having it play out in a really grounded sense where it is just set pieces of wartime, as opposed to this high sci-fi concept where there's time travel or something that resembles time travel, or even a character who has short-term memory loss. Like, there's none of that. The only way that he's exploring this temporal perception, which is his greatest interest as a filmmaker, is just through these war set pieces, which I think is like phenomenal for him as a film director. Bryan, I like am kind of a war movie guy, but I also have a hard time with a lot of war movies because there's what is it, Godard, who said like any war movie that you make
That's
is inherently
Truffaut. Yeah.
Truffaut, the other French
Yeah.
guy, whatever.
Yeah. There are
Mbappe
lots
or
of them.
something. Yeah, there are too many of them, honestly. What's the full quote? Like, it's impossible to make an anti-war movie.
All war movies are pro-war.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that this is a refreshing look at a war movie, because it feels like it's not as pro-war in the way that a lot of others are, because the war is just a backdrop to explore something fresh and interesting, and isn't necessarily about like patriotic pride or anything like that. It's just about, hey, how do different people experience the same event with a different sense of time? And I think it's, yeah, I think that this is the more bold, like forward pushing movie that Oppenheimer says it is. I think this is what is actually doing that in his career path. If
I
that
don't
makes sense.
disagree with that, especially in terms of just the cinematography and the set pieces. It's definitely, it feels more ambitious than Oppenheimer throughout, as opposed to like Oppenheimer kind of like really blows its load in like a few scenes, and those scenes are really, really great. Yeah, I do think this plays to his strengths in just feeling like a really tense, stressful, on the ground, oh my gosh, we got to get away experience, and not having to focus on like developing these characters and who's doing what and whatever. Whereas like, I think when he gets in the weeds with like these characters and what do they want and what do they need and who do they care about, that's really where he gets in trouble. And I think like Dunkirk is kind of playing to his strengths in that way, and that like it's a very beautiful movie, it's a very tense movie. I, like Bryan, am not much of a war movie person also, so like I wouldn't rank this high subjectively for me, but I still acknowledge that like it's a great movie. It does so much well.
I did not get the opportunity to watch Dunkirk before this recording. I picked it up from the library today, but I just did not have time.
You have a
So I'm
fun
excited.
weekend.
I'm excited to hear Raph's description of it, because I'm not a huge war movie guy either. But there are some war movies that I like quite well, and I think On the Ground, close up is kind of where I like to be on those, versus further back and thinking about the larger scale uh, things going on. And so I'm interested to see it, and I don't have anything to contribute as far as the ranking goes. So it sounds
Yeah.
like
What are y'all
Raph would
think?
give this an
Yeah.
S, and the other two of you would give this like a
Maybe an
B.
A.
So would this be our first A?
I'd
Or
say B tier, but
I'm fine coming down to A. I think I know that I'm in the minority on Dunkirk being his best movie. But everyone's got to have a take.
the minority on this podcast, I think. It's a pretty well liked movie broadly. So, Val, how do
It
you
is in the
feel?
canon.
I'm like very flexible. I could do A or B, but like I'm fine with A because of how effective it is for what it's trying to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Raph, I'm gonna we'll put it in A because I was really mean to you when we started this podcast because I wanted to fight, and so I'll let you have a little bit more on the ranking side of things because I just more wanted to argue with someone.
That's totally fine. That's fair.
It's good.
I think that Dunkirk is everything that Oppenheimer tells us it is, but didn't get the love that it deserves. I think it is a way more bold, ambitious approach to filmmaking than Oppenheimer. I think Dunkirk does way more for the war movie genre than Oppenheimer does for the biopic, if that makes sense. In terms of
I
being
get
like
that.
a game changer in how it is
I
that
don't
it's.
disagree with that.
And I think it leans into Nolan's time strengths.
I mean, the biopic could use a reminder of how to like be a functional movie nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that Oppenheimer was a fairly decent one, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
So
The music
we're moving-
biopic is the worst of the bunch, and
What?
Oppenheimer is not a music
Bryan,
biopic.
you didn't like Michael?
I did not see Michael and will not see Michael.
I think I maybe already said this, but similar to Memento, Dunkirk plays into Nolan's inability to write characters the best out of any of his movies.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right,
Uh,
Jacob,
Christopher
what's
Nolan
next?
should do a music biopic.
We're moving on. And this will be thankfully this will be the last of the Nolan films that I have not seen, and that is Insomnia, which I did
Okay.
try and watch at one point a little too late and fell asleep, which is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really thought I was really excited to see Robin Williams.
This is the best possible outcome of you watching Insomnia.
I fell asleep while watching Insomnia is just an amazingly hilarious comedic sentence.
I need to put that on my Letterboxd review. I was excited to see Robin Williams in a.
It's like a Mitch Hedberg level joke.
I was excited to see Robin Williams in a serious role, especially after how much fun I had watching him in 1 Hour Photo, and yeah, it kind of dragged its feet for me, and I couldn't get into it, and so I'll hand it over to the folks who watched the whole thing.
It's fine. See here.
See, I was afraid because I have nothing really to say about Insomnia.
No, let's
so-
just move on. It can be in the C tier.
It's fine. Everybody's doing a fine performance.
Is it
Does Al Pacino say "hooah"?
does it belong in the
He
C
does
tier or the D
not,
tier?
It
The
could use
top
a little more
review
of that.
on Letterboxd says, "Oh, Mr. Nolan, how very David Fincher of you."
Yeah, sure.
I think it's pretty accurate.
I could be talked into D tier. Yeah, just to even it out, one in
Just
each tier.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you know.
Fincher might make a comeback in this conversation. Just saying.
Oh,
at least
Ooh.
Following had a little bit of a discussion to be had. We can't even talk about
Yeah.
Insomnia. I literally talked the most about Insomnia, and I watched like 15 minutes of it and fell asleep.
Let's move on to the next movie.
I want to
Can
say
we
though,
not
just
move
about
on to the next movie?
I want to say the premise of Insomnia, I thought would be interesting with the whole idea of it being
felt
constantly
very Stephen
bright.
King, but it's not that interesting to watch.
But yeah, from the execution standpoint, it didn't really. It's like the opposite of if this had actually been 30 Days of Night that they were in. I think that would have given it a much more oppressive kind of quality than the 30 Days of Sunlight. It just didn't really translate visually to any interest to me. Anyway, moving on, we have a pretty big one, Interstellar.
Interstellar is a bad movie. Yeah.
I
it's
messaged
just
all
not
of
good.
you when I
Yeah.
watched it for the first time because I was like raving red-faced mad when I finished this movie because I was like, everybody said this movie was good and I expected it to be mid and I was disappointed. And that was just a horrible feeling. But I think just largely this movie is carried by its performances and its performances are really good. Like, do you care about these characters or is Jessica Chastain just a really good actress?
Mm.
I
Like,
finished
Yeah.
my rewatch like an hour before we started this,
Mhm.
and I remember being kind of mid on it. And this time around, I was like, "This movie is absolute dog shit." Like,
It's terrible. I
this
tried
isn't-
to rewatch it because of how much love it's gotten from certain corners of the internet, and I didn't really like it the first time. The second time, I really despised it. Yeah.
I can tell when I really don't like a movie because what I'll end up doing is like if my partner's like, playing Europa Universalis in the other room, I'll like pause it and go rant at him and then like keep watching the movie and like keep walking back and forth. And that like kept happening during Interstellar. I was like, I cannot believe because he watched it on a plane to Japan and he watched it at like 3 in the morning or whatever. So he was like, this was pretty good. And the more he thought about it, he was like, wait, I didn't like this movie that much. I will say the NPR special on the science behind it is very interesting, though. So,
Oh,
so that
I
that's
would
good.
I mean-
rather listen to that than watch this movie again.
I
I
just
think if we can cut out all the parts, if we can just do
Of
like the
everything?
docking scene and then like some of the stuff on the other planets is kind of a cool deal.
this movie shafts itself so hard. Everything it does well, it shafts during the ending by being like, "Oh, it's all just us in the future," because like the first handshake scene is pretty cool, but then you're like, "Oh, it's just Matthew McConaughey." Well, now I don't care.
Mm.
Like any kind of mystery or we don't really know what's out there, it sort of over explains and creates this closed loop system of it's all just Murph and Matthew McConaughey and
Whatever's happened happened. It's kind of a more annoying version of what the bromance in Tenet is supposed to be, right? Where it's this like eternal sort of infinity connection between these two characters. And I don't think Matthew McConaughey is like actually all that interesting as an actor. I think he has like a very limited range, and when he's within that range, he's amazing. See Dazed and Confused. When he's outside of that range, see
Or,
Interstellar. He's
True
Wolf of
Detective.
Wall
very annoying.
Street, the cameo in Wolf of
Yeah.
Wall Street. Yeah, that's
I'll-
gotta
that's
get
a
those
sweet
numbers
spot.
up.
I'll take that. Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
it's so frustrating because I feel like we just don't get enough time with Murph, and I literally can't remember his character's name. But like we don't
Getty?
feel their intimacy at all enough to carry the film through 2.5 freaking hours, which is why it took me so long to watch this movie because I was like, I don't want to sit down for 2.5 hours. But the problem is the movie scenes where this works just are far outweighed by the scenes where it's just like really flat character work and it's just like
Mhm.
ugh, like
I
I
don't
was
know.
rolling my eyes by the end and it's like, Anne Hathaway, you gotta go find her. I was like, why?
Yeah, who cares about it at that point? I don't know that there's anything that works in this movie for me. I would have to see it in like I should have gone to like the 70 millimeter IMAX 10th anniversary
It's beautiful.
screenings of this because I was watching it and I was like, I don't find anything to be all that visually stimulating in any of these
Mm.
scenes. Like this is like I've seen way more interesting space movies. Even Ad Astra, which I thought was like kind of mid, does a lot of this stuff in a more interesting way. My two takeaways from this movie, they're both very inconsequential. One, the grandkid's name is Coop Cooper. His first name is Coop, after his grandfather, who's called Coop because that's his last name, which means that the child's last name is also Cooper. So his name is Coop Cooper. But that kid's dad is played by Casey Affleck. And I just think it's ridiculous that we as a society never pause to talk about the fact that Timothy Chalamet grows up to become Casey Affleck. Like, that's ridiculous. That's absurd. And
Also,
we should all
cut
make
that
note
character
of
entirely. What does he add to the movie? He only
that. Yeah, it's
muddies
Coop
it.
Cooper.
Wait, is that
Yeah.
the grandson Coop is the child of Timothy Chalamet? For sure. I haven't watched it in a long time. I was like, maybe if it would make sense if it was Murph's son, because she might have changed her last name, so it could be transitioning
Mm.
Cooper over to the first
Coop
name.
Murphy? Coop Murphy? Cooper?
I think
I'm gonna
Murphy's the
die.
first.
This is terrible. I didn't realize that was the kid's name.
This is gonna be F tier for me, and I want to get some YouTube comments about it. So if you love Interstellar, please tell us why and defend in great detail, and we will read every word of it. I promise.
No, I would agree with F tier. But I'm fine. I would also be like, if people are like, no, I love it, bump it up to D tier, whatever. I
No,
think
for the
it's
content, it's got to be F tier.
It's F tier. It's a bad movie.
It's
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 terrible.
not
not a good
fun. It's not
movie.
enjoyable.
For
The,
me,
Can't
D is
believe the
for
kid's name is Coop.
the emotional crux of the movie, that scene where Matthew McConaughey is like crying over Murph's videos, is like such dog shit. It's played so poorly. from the way that it's like
I think
written to the way that it is acted.
I will say I think it's acted fine.
D is for dog
The best
shit.
thing about that scene,
That it ends.
the score.
F tier.
F
F
is
tier.
for-
F tier.
This
F is
is
for
this
fucking
is
dog shit.
another one of those Christopher Nolan movies where you throw on the score and you're like, this shit kind of bangs, and then you
Well, 'cause
watch it
he
within the
gets
context of the
Hans
movie,
Zimmer every
you're like,
time.
Yeah.
and you're like,
Hans
oh
Zimmer's a
wow.
good composer.
When I remove the score from the dog shit movie, it's awesome. But when I watch it within the context of the movie, it's the most annoying sound I've ever heard.
I clearly
because it's accompanied by Cooper.
I clearly am the highest on Interstellar of this group, and the highest I could possibly go is a C since everyone else wants F. It's just going to be F, and it's great for content. Make the
great for the
thumbnail
content.
Interstellar in F. Shoot, well, oops, that's the wrong thing to do.
Mm.
Oops, wrong. Okay. Let's move it up to the front so make sure people see it.
Yeah.
Interstellar's an F, guys. That's going to be fun. So we can move on now. What's next on the ping?
Batman
pong
Begins?
element of
Is it
this?
Batman Begins? I think it
Yep,
is.
Batman
Yeah.
Begins.
It is Batman Begins. Kind of fun. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty fun.
A good time. It has, like, back when we did superhero origin stories, it has a little bit of that where it's gotta, like, set up the Batman origin story before it gets into it, so you're a little bit delaying the, like, actual fun of the superhero stuff. But Cillian Murphy is great in this as Scarecrow. I think to me, Christopher Nolan isn't quite as bad at characters as y'all have been making it seem. I think he's very bad at female characters in particular, but male characters, I think he sometimes can stumble into some decent writing. I'd say he knows how to do like a character arc, how to put together progression and that sort of like typical movie thing that has been done historically forever. And I think here it's pretty strong with the progression of this character and setting up the background and stuff. So I think it has some of its strongest like character work.
I think it's a fun movie. I think it from a tier maker perspective, I think it's alliteration time for Batman Begins in the B section. It's a fun, nice superhero movie. It's
That
definitely not the best
feels
of this
about right to me.
trilogy.
Yep.
I mean it's good. It's got some good setup stuff. It's probably a little bit better just as far as a Batman movie than maybe some of the other Batman movies from Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Imagine
the case.
Gotham City feeling like a city out of a comic book and not being Pittsburgh. Batman Begins dares to ask that question.
So
It's cool. It's fun. It remembers that it's a comic book movie and that Batman can say cheesy one-liners and punch no-name goons in the face, and like that's why we like Batman.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, honestly, for me, I have only seen it maybe once, and it's not that memorable to me. Like Ra's al Ghul and stuff. It was kind of fun while I watched it, but it didn't really stand out to me to really put it any higher than B.
This one also suffers from, especially in the beginning part, doing the thing where characters are kind of doing exposition adjacent things while the score rages on, and we're doing a lot of cross-cutting. But it kind of works for like Batman early training sequences in ways that it doesn't work for me in something like Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I think that largely the movie works for me. The last time I rewatched it, I remember thinking it was like too long. I remember thinking like if they cut this down, it would flow a little bit better. Ultimately, when compared with Dark Knight, it definitely feels like a lesser movie, but I still think it's largely pretty serviceable. And I think the historical impact of it is mainly what we remember about it because it was kind of the first dark, gritty superhero movie in the 2000s, and what followed was kind of imitations, better or worse than that. So it did kind of start the trend in that way. And I mean, it is still largely a good movie. And I mean, Cillian Murphy, who's going to show up in many of these movies, I think is pretty great in it as the Scarecrow, and Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul is pretty good. So
I have one random comic book movie comment about that. I feel like because of the success of The Dark Knight, we end up rewriting history where we say, like you were saying, Val, where the Batman Begins is the first iteration of these like dark. I'm sorry, I'm waging war with a fly in my apartment right now.
you're good. I'm like surrounded by fruit flies, so it's fine.
I'm like, I'm not shadow boxing. I'm waging war against an intruder. But I feel like we end up rewriting history in that regard with Batman Begins, because I do think that the X-Men trilogy from the early 2000s is really the first version of that. We could also go back as far as to say that like the Tim Burton Batman movies are dark, grounded versions of superhero, but they're also pretty fun. But like the X-Men movies, like they're stripped out of their like colorful X-Men costumes, and everything's kind of like gray and silver, and all that stuff. And like Wolverine is just like
those aren't trying to be like set in the real world in the same way as something like this is. It was this and Casino Royale, and I think it was because those franchises had gotten to such a goofy place. And so rebooting those franchises with much more grounded takes felt so different, where X-Men really hadn't like gotten that transition. So
that's fair.
There's X-Men, there's Spider-Man before this as well, that's also doing that sort of thing, but those are still a little bit cartoony. They're just a little bit more updated or modern. The CGI is better, you know.
That's fair. I still think I would still argue for X-Men a little bit, just mostly because they're removed out of their like costuming, and it doesn't feel but it's also hard to make the X-Men like not a little cartoony
because of what it is,
because of their powers. So
and Batman can be that way, where it is like he has no powers. It is like the quote unquote real world. And James Bond, you can sort of do the same thing, where it just got into a very like goofy superhero place, but nothing about the concept itself is all that supernatural or unique. It doesn't feel right to me to have this in the same tier as Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer is such more significant of a movie and better movie, but wondering how you, Raph, you were sort of dragging Oppenheimer down. Do you like Batman Begins significantly more than Oppenheimer?
No, I like them about the same.
I was going to argue C tier for this one.
I mean, all of the rest of us have Oppenheimer higher. I'd put Batman Begins in B tier and move Oppenheimer up where Dunkirk is, but
I can't have Oppenheimer and Dunkirk in the same tier. Bryan, I will come to your house and fight you.
Can Bryan, we establish?
I think what we'll do, Bryan, is at the end of this list, we'll take one more look at it and see if we want to make any changes. But I might be in your corner, because I was thinking, hey, we gave Raph Dunkirk in A, but none of us.
We did.
I haven't seen Dunkirk to say.
Oppenheimer was also a compromise.
Yeah, you wanted it in C. The rest of us wanted it in A. That's 3-1.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. You know what? Depending on how the rest of the ranking shakes out, I might be willing to give Oppenheimer an A, because there are some other things that I might want to drag down a little bit.
Okay, for now, I'm going to put Batman Begins at C, because I'm between B and C, and Val said C. And
where are you at on this, Raph? B tier?
I would say B, but you know what? I'm totally fine with this being C tier.
I'd also say B tier, but I suspect that the Batman rankings from here are gonna get a little
It's
like
gonna get a little dicey.
it's gonna
I
get a
think
little dicey.
I would be okay with
gonna
moving
need more
both
whiskey for that.
Batman and Oppenheimer up, and I agree. I don't think most of us here put Batman Begins and Oppenheimer on the same tier, so I think that might be the
Yeah,
compromise at the end. But we'll check that when we
Yeah,
get
We'll see.
we'll
back,
see.
so that
We'll
we
see.
can move on to the next, which
Is The Dark Knight
is
gonna be the last movie we rank?
It
That's gonna
seems
be
like it.
amazing.
Oh
I
yeah,
think it might be,
that's gonna be fun.
because the next movie that we're going to rank is, let me double check. Um,
It's another Batman movie.
The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
it was going to
yeah.
be The Prestige.
Let me
Okay.
start. Let me start on The Dark Knight Rises. I've only
Yeah,
seen it
go for
once,
it.
so I actually was introduced to the entire Dark Knight trilogy all at once by a friend. So I actually
Oh,
it had all
no.
come out, and I watched them all back to back. And of course, I watched Batman Begins, and I was like, that was good. I was like, I don't know if I get the hype yet, but like it was pretty good. And then we watched The Dark Knight, and I was like, okay, that really was great. I get it. And then we watched The Dark Knight Rises, and I was like, what the hell is this trash? Um, I don't know for anybody else if this was this way, but the whole movie was ruined for me because it was so obvious. It was so obvious the twist that was coming. Like, Batman's randomly shacking up with this woman that makes no sense to be there. And it's like, oh, she secretly was out to get you this whole time. And I was like, yeah, of course she was, man. Like, I saw that like like 20 minutes in, and it just kind of ruined the whole effect for me.
I
So I was
thought
like,
you
this
were
is
talking about the twist where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Robin, which is the dumbest reveal.
It's the
You
worst
cause
reveal.
them-
But I do think I was like thinking about this movie. I think that this movie is terrible, but I think a lot of the reasons that this movie is terrible are things that are outside of Christopher Nolan's hands. Like the Robin thing feels like studio interference. I think
Mhm.
Christopher Nolan was always planning to end this trilogy with Batman dying in the way that the Daniel Craig James Bond character ends up dying at the end of that little James Bond run. I think that the studio forced his hand with having Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I always refer to as Jason Joseph Lovitz. Like the studio forced him to make him the Robin character so that they could maybe spin it off, because this was the biggest movie franchise in the world at the time. So like you don't want to kill off Batman and leave yourself no opportunity for any subsequent sequels if you want to bring back Christian Bale and the rest of the squad. And then the other thing is like the tragic passing of Heath Ledger. Like I think that the original plan was to have a lot more Joker in this movie, and that unfortunately like really limited what Christopher Nolan was able to do with this. And I think for those reasons we end up getting a really bad movie. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad movie because of Christopher Nolan, if that makes sense.
I think
it
that's
could have been
fair.
I think it could have been okay, but there were just so many things
Yeah.
outside of his control that made it dog shit.
I think that this movie is overall, be it studio interference or Christopher Nolan's writing, it is trying to do too many things. And even though, like, I don't actually hate Tom Hardy as Bane, I think he's kind of iconic. But this movie is trying to do Bane and Catgirl and Robin and Ra's al Ghul, and it becomes too much too quickly. And when I first saw it, showing my age, saw it in theaters for a Batman like trilogy marathon where I paid Regal $25 to see 3 movies, which would never happen now, but so I saw like kind of like Jacob, I saw the first 2, so like being like, yeah, Batman Begins good. Dark Knight, and I'd seen them before, but seeing them all leading up to it, I was like especially hype after Dark Knight, and then I saw it and I was kind of in cope for a while. I was like, this was fine. I'm sure it was fine. Like it's better than I'm
Yeah.
thinking. It's fine. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, no, this isn't a good movie.
Yeah. It's rather long. It's pretty boring. It just does not support the runtime. There are a couple of things in it that are interesting. I wouldn't put it in F tier. I'd probably be D tier for this one.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. I think also comparing it now to like Anne Hathaway is a good actress, but like comparing her Selena Kyle and the way it's handled by the movie to the Batman's handling of Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, it's just like, wow, this could have been handled so much better. And I think especially with the newer Batman movies out, it's even worse now.
Matthew Modine is really cool in this, though. He's the
Yeah.
MVP for me.
I don't remember him at all. I don't remember anything about this movie.
It's pretty bad. I feel like as a movie, it's F tier, but because it's not Christopher Nolan's fault. I think D tier makes sense. It's like not like Interstellar and Tenet are offensive because of Christopher Nolan,
Yeah.
whereas Batman Begins is kind of just like a fart because that's what it is, and it's not.
It's a lot of pressure to follow up The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And especially with Heath Ledger passing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the deck was stacked against him in this way. And I think he wanted to do so much in the final film that, like, the fact that it's as good as it is a testament to his story crafting ability. Like, I think it could have been worse, honestly, with all the characters he stuffs in. It is really long and boring, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. No one recognizes that Batman and Bruce Wayne both come back after 8 years in hiding, except for one detective whose name is Robin.
All right.
And everybody was like, we're going to get a Nightwing movie. It didn't happen.
For this is a really, I think we're gonna do really well. This is gonna be a very balanced tier list.
So balanced.
Because
We'll see.
We're gonna fuck it up at the end. Yeah.
It won't be perfect, but it will be close. Maybe. The next film on the list is The Prestige. Yeah.
Rewatched this recently. This is the best movie about the art of being a hater out there, which is actually a very limited canon of movies I discovered after watching The Prestige. Very short list. It's this, it's All About Eve, and it's Amadeus. We don't even have a Mount Rushmore.
I will
just the
say,
top
I
three.
think I told Raph that this was one of the first movies I ever watched. I think I was like 15 or 16 that I was like, whoa, movies can like do this big twist thing. Because I don't think I had much to compare it to at the time because I was still in the cult sphere. But really, like, this kind of opened up my world. So it was in my top 5 movies for a while, and I only recently kind of moved it out. But I think it's still largely such a successful film. And even knowing the twist, it's still just as great, if not a little better, knowing the twist in the
And
rewatch.
it's so detailed and complex. You can watch this multiple times knowing the twist and pick up new things and be like, "Oh man, that was layered in there," which is the best way, in a movie with a twist. When you rewatch it, you really want to be able to go back and be like, there were so many like little hints in here that I could have picked up, but I didn't. As
Can we
opposed
go
to
spoiler alert?
yeah,
Spoiler
I
alert
mean,
for a 20-year-old movie.
because I mean, there's so many details that you're like, you're trying to piece it together, and the puzzle pieces were there. The worst thing if you do a mystery film like this is going back and watching and being like, you didn't give me the pieces. I couldn't have put this puzzle together. But I think Christopher Nolan gives you just enough where you could have done it, but
Absolutely.
it's so complex that you're unlikely to. And then once you watched it the first time and it hooks you, then you can go back and watch, and it's still fun trying to see all the pieces come together.
Well, there's a whole thing where they're talking about like the beauty of magic, and the secret to the trick is right in front of your face, but we as audience members don't want to see it. And while I was rewatching, there are like several shots where it's just very obvious that it's Christian Bale in a fat suit.
Well,
And you're
also,
like, oh yeah, the reveal of the magic trick is literally right in front of my face, but me as the audience member, because I want to be tricked by the magic, I don't pick up on it. But it's just like it's just there. There's like one shot where they're sitting around the dinner table and it just lingers on that character. And you're like, wait, that's 1,000% Christian Bale.
Yeah, I think that one of the a couple of the things that they point at the end of the movie to be like this is the big twist is the fingers thing being like because uh Rebecca, what's her last name?
Rebecca Hall.
Rebecca Hall says like this is just as bad as when you first got it. And that is meant to be one of the cues to be like this is a new wound, and also how much he freaks out when he's buried. Like it's not a normal amount of freak out. So like there's so many things that should clue you in that something's going on, but like the first time you watch this movie, at least for me, I didn't see it. I did not see it coming. So like when it's revealed, I was like, holy shit. But I mean, it's just a very effective film and some great performances.
And
The
and
double
Michael
twist is also
Caine's
amazing.
Michael Caine's meta narration is so perfectly everything
So
about that so
good.
perfectly lays out the film for you and illustrates how a magic trick works while the movie works its magic trick on you. It is just really well structured and comes together.
Yeah. I'm not quite as high on this movie as the rest of you. I like it. I think structuring I think this is where Nolan gets a little too heavy into the every movie has to have a twist sort of thing for me. And so that becomes a little bit of an issue where the twist is sort of the entire movie rather than the movie standing on its own. But I think it's rather clever to have a movie like that be so focused around magic, which is around deception and trickery. And so it makes sense as a world he'd want to explore. I don't think the aesthetics are as strong exploring this world as something like Memento, which was only a few years earlier. But I do think it's a good movie. I wouldn't have it in S tier myself, but I think it's solid. Yeah.
I think the thing with the twist here is that it really does hammer home what I think is the central theme of this movie, which is the art of hating. Like, Bryan, have you never hated someone so much that you'd be willing to clone and kill yourself night after night after night? That is a beautiful level of hating.
I don't hate anyone. I have to psych myself up to come on this podcast and be a hater towards all of you for wanting to hate Christopher Nolan because I don't want to hate anyone.
This is where David Fincher comes back for me because
interesting.
I think Nolan wrote this movie about David Fincher. I think he would be willing to clone and kill himself every night in order to be better than David Fincher. And
I think creating this lore between directors.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
Said anything about David
the
Fincher?
Aesthetics and visuals, though, compared to David Fincher, they're just not there, and maybe that's why he wants to clone himself and kill himself over and over again.
Perhaps some would say the aesthetics of Hugh Jackman's magic tricks weren't quite up to par with the aesthetic and
does Hugh Jackman play a better magician in this or The Greatest Showman?
The Greatest Showman's ass. That's what I said.
I agree.
I haven't seen The Greatest Showman, but it depends on how you define greater magician. I mean, he ends up cheating by going and getting himself cloned, which is kind of outside of the realm of sleight of hand, I would argue.
Yeah, but it's the dedication to your craft and the dedication to one-upping your all-time rival, no matter what the cost may be. Like, that is an insane level of hating. Imagine hating someone so much that you are willing to do that. Where he says, I don't know if I'm going to be the man who's up in the balcony or if I'm going to be the guy who's drowning underneath the stage. Like, but still willing to do that trick night after night because he hates Christian Bale's character so much. That is
no, it's a great for the character as a magician.
Beautiful.
Maybe
that is hating in its top form. We should all aspire to be such big haters. Find a rival and hate someone that much.
Oh my God.
That's why this movie is awesome. Forget the twist. Forget David Bowie playing like a weird Tesla character, which is also awesome.
That
Forget
is funny.
Scarlett Johansson being a terribly written character. Forget Christian Bale in a fat suit. All we got to think about is the art of hating.
One of the
Yeah,
things I
that
think
I mean,
one of the things I think makes this movie one of Nolan's best is that it doesn't really require that warmth because these are two guys that are just hating each other, and that comes through, and there's really no warmth required, and so it just allows the procedure of the magic trick, which is where the magic of this movie really is, to kind of work on you without having to worry. I mean, there's obviously a little bit of a romance thing going on in terms of Christian Bale's character, and the whole deal between the two twins with Scarlett Johansson. But um, I don't know. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to me. This is one of those films that works better on a cold, like technical level.
to Brian's point, I mean, yes, him writing women is like, I think it's the most obviously bad in this movie because they're central to the plot. But it's essentially like Rebecca Hall is the Madonna and Scarlett Johansson is the whore. And that's like, it doesn't get more complex than that. Like, they are very, very surface level. And it's like especially obvious here, I think, because such a focus is on Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman's characters.
Well, they're just there to serve, again, the magic trick being laid out right in front of our faces, right? It's supposed to be super
Exactly.
obvious that, oh, these are two different people because they're in love with two different women.
And any interest that's brought in by their characters is the fact that Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson are really great actresses, both of them. I think they both do really well in this movie. They're given nothing to do.
This
Yeah.
movie's also a great
That's the
reminder
problem.
of how easily we're duped into believing in magic just because we forget twins exist for short periods
Yep.
of time. We're like,
It's one of
That's
the
fair.
best plot twists, though, of two things that you think are different being the same thing. Like in writing, that's one of the core plot twists.
There are enough magic movies out there.
Yeah.
After watching
What do
Tenet,
you
I'm
know?
more-
You see me.
I watched Now You See Me 3. Low-key a better movie than Tenet.
I mean, I could kind of
I
leave
kinda
that, but
lock
I
in
think
on those
those movies
movies.
are ass too.
I've
personally.
only seen the first one. I cannot bring myself to see anymore. It
Yeah.
was very bad.
They're bad in ways that I find very charming.
Okay, yeah.
Can we
That's
talk
good
about
for
how Woody
you.
Harrelson in those movies is like legitimately a wizard, though? Like, how
No,
is he
man, it's
able to
all-
just like make people pass out behind the wheel of a
He's just
moving
he's a
vehicle? Like,
mentalist,
what do you
bro.
mean?
He's a mentalist. You
I
gotta,
don't
you
think that's
just,
right.
you're not a
All right,
real,
where
you're not a real
are we
magic.
putting this movie? Jacob's
Uh,
got the tier list up.
I'm fine. Like, I would even do S tier because I really like this movie, but I'm fine with A tier.
I'm comfortable with S tier or A tier. This is probably, until I saw
think it's up to
Memento.
Bryan.
Memento, this is probably my
A
favorite.
tier. Yep. A tier.
Yeah,
A tier's fine.
We're going A tier. Okay,
yeah.
fine by me.
S tier hater movie, but A just as a movie.
Amadeus and All About Eve are both better movies than this. But
I need to
get-
see
I
All
see your
About Eve.
point. Yeah.
It
about
does. It's
the
not
level of
streaming
hatred
anywhere. It's not in my
that's displayed in
library.
this movie.
I can't find it at a
It's
thrift
not the
store.
same level of hatred. This truly inspired me to go out and find a new rival.
Oh wow.
That's how much I could feel the hatred dripping from this movie.
Raph is gonna start taking a journal and like writing it to his rival, who will be reading the journal,
Wow.
The-
thinking ahead.
Now we're going to Inception, so a pretty adjacent film. Yeah, I've seen
Can I
Inception
do a mini
once.
rant on Inception?
Yeah.
Okay. I just have to say, all the people that are like, this movie's too complicated are fucking dumb as shit because this movie's very easy to follow. If you just
Very.
understand the internal logic of like, 1, 2, 3 limbo. That's it. Can you count to 4? I guess not if you think this movie's too complicated. But
It is very
that's
well
my rant.
explained
Rant
how
over.
this world
We can
works.
talk about Inception now.
This movie does a very clear job of laying out exactly how the world works.
Yeah.
So if you don't follow it, then you're in trouble with your movie literacy.
I think, well, kind of unrelated, but I think my biggest problem with Inception is the ending. I think because of the ending and the ambiguity that is like allegedly supposed to surround that. I think that then makes people think that the rest of the movie is more confusing than it actually is. And my biggest problem with the ending of Inception is that I think it needs to be straightforward because the rest of the movie deserves a happy ending for that character. And because we don't get the resolution, it doesn't feel like a fully satisfying ending to the movie,
I
which
think
is
that
like my biggest problem with the whole thing.
I think that some of this does come down to Christopher Nolan's character work because when asked specifically about the ending, he said that the point isn't whether the top falls or not, but that Cobb doesn't care anymore. And I think that's good if Cobb were a little bit more fleshed out than he is. And I don't think he's like bad. I think he's probably one of Christopher Nolan's better characters. Again, I think mostly due to Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, but I think that would be a deserved ending if Cobb were more of a character than he is.
Shouldn't it be
Okay.
more obvious that it doesn't matter to Cobb? Like that's not what the ending signifies to us.
Yeah.
And the
It's
whole
not. Yeah.
again, the whole movie isn't supposed to be about like how confusing and how ambiguous it is at the end. It should be super unambiguous because everything that we've seen this character do in the 2.5 hours leading up to that moment tells us that he deserves a certain kind of ending for this particular story. And the
Mhm.
fact that we as audience members don't get to see that, I think is the most frustrating part.
Mhm. Interesting.
Well, we all think too much about movies, and share. So I saw this at a midnight premiere. So was real big on Nolan. You know, had the DVD of Memento. Loved The Prestige at the time. Huge fan of The Dark Knight, and so it was like, let's see this first thing we can. When this movie ended and that top kept spinning at the midnight premiere, like no one had seen this before. There was a collective like "Ah!" from the audience at the end of that movie. And I've never experienced anything like that where everybody was sort of like exasperated, but like so taken by that twist at the end of the movie that it honestly really like worked for me in the moment. And I think that's what most people experience with this movie of like just seeing that top keep spinning, and it's a visual cue of an idea that's been set up earlier in the movie, and it just works in the moment. I get that we've had like 16 years to think about this movie and analyze it and think about it, and but like that first time watching the movie, it just works. And I don't think that a movie needs to necessarily, like we were praising The Prestige on rewatch. I think a movie working on you the first time can be as important as it is to sustain upon rewatch. And this just like really works in the room, I'd say,
Mhm.
for what it's trying to
Yeah,
do.
it's been a long
And so
Yeah.
like because it was such a big hit at the time, I think its reputation has taken a bit of a hit. I don't know that that's fair to the text of the movie itself.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen this. I think at the time, um, the ending wasn't necessarily the problem for me. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to leave it. This is another one of Nolan's films that, for whatever reason, it felt like it kept me at arm's length. And I just couldn't. It's like appreciated the interesting, complex sci-fi element of the story, but I just couldn't connect the way that I wanted to. And with so much of this being about Leonardo DiCaprio getting back to his wife, whatever is, it's like it didn't really feel the connection enough to really invest me in the rest of it. Also, this is kind of separate from what the movie gives us. I remember everybody at the time was so enamored with like the city folding in on itself type of visuals. And they're cool. They're cool. But it's also kind of like having seen a lot of other stuff now, it's kind of like the dreams aren't really that dreamy enough. I mean, I guess it's subconscious levels more than dreams, whatever. But like, it's just like kind of limited. Uh, the VFX are cool, but I appreciate something a little more creative when you're going into like a mind sphere. Personally, I guess. I don't
Interesting.
know.
I feel like the visuals here are probably the strongest that he's had out of any of his movies. I think the dream aspect lends itself to some really captivating visuals, whether it's the city folding in on itself or that like weird limbo area where he's on the beach and all the buildings are collapsing all around him. Like I think there's some really really cool stunning visuals within this movie, probably the best of his career. And again, the score is great. The score carries a lot of this movie in the same way that it does in um, Oppenheimer, Interstellar, or Tenet. But I think that there's more that's interesting surrounding the rest of this movie that isn't within those other movies. And then you also have you throw in a leading man like Leonardo DiCaprio, like no disrespect to Murphy, who's like an amazing actor, but he just doesn't have the same kind of pull that someone like Leo has. So you throw Leonardo DiCaprio in the middle of your movie, and it's automatically going to be that much more captivating to people.
Yeah, I do think the performances do carry this, and even Murphy, I think, still gives a pretty great performance in this movie. I think that the pieces just come together in this movie a little bit more than maybe they do in some of his other films. And like you said, that we've got stunning visuals, we've got an amazing soundtrack. There's just a lot that works about Inception. I'm sort of surprised to hear that it's getting like some not love like now, because I think it's still ultimately a pretty great movie that works very well. I mean, I think there's critiques about it, but even some of the things that I've heard people critique about it, I'm like, that's not really true. Like Marie Cotillard gets a lot of hate, and I think that more of that has to do with Nolan's writing than her performance. I think she's a wonderful actress. Yeah, I don't really have much to like complain about for this movie. I think in general, like there's a lot that's like great or good about it.
I don't know that we've talked about it that much yet, but this is the prime example. But Nolan loves a dead wife.
He does love a dead wife.
He
Well, because then he
adores
doesn't have
the
to
shit out
write
of
her saying very much if he kills her.
Yeah. All of his movies are about losers who are like, my wife's dead. I don't know what to do. What do I do? My wife's dead.
Because he
I
doesn't
think
know
that,
how to write a woman other than her being like, I'm here for my man.
yeah.
And like even like Elliot Page's character, like he's in this movie pre-transition. His character is just kind of like a cob enthusiast.
Exposition machine. Yeah.
Like
That's
what are they
the
doing
only-
here?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't know how to write women. That's a pretty good point.
Yeah, I think I lean towards liking this movie, but I think my issues with the resolution hold me back from. I don't know that I would ever get to S tier for this movie. I think I
No.
could see myself getting to A tier, but that ending really holds me back because I think it's again it falls into the trap of Nolan making the movie that he thinks it's supposed to be as opposed to the movie that it should be, and this movie having that easy resolution the way that Bryan you felt it in the room the first time watching it, I think would make it way more enjoyable upon rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. And I find myself like the last couple times I've rewatched this movie being like, wow, this is like really cool. This is like a really fun story to go along, a really fun ride to be on. And then I get to the end and I'm so frustrated. I'm like, Christopher, why don't you just allow this movie to end the way that you've built it up to end? It seems like an unnecessary rug pull.
Yeah. I'd probably put it in B tier. Is that how we're feeling?
I'd be fine with B
I
tier.
think everyone here is fine with B tier then.
That totally works for me.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, this list is so balanced.
But there's one left.
Oh, there's one left. So to make it perfectly balanced, we would have to do
As all things should
put this
be.
one in S tier, but I don't know.
There's no way I would
Yeah.
allow that.
Oh, Raph, Dark Knight hater, here we come.
I mean, my issue with the
I
Dark
wouldn't
Knight,
allow it in S tier either. Yeah, but we'll get into it. I think some things about it are great. There are flaws. There are flaws for sure.
there's certainly flaws. I think it's fair the re-examining that we've done over the years of this movie and its place within film history, and this being like the IMDb, #1 movie of all time. I don't think that it deserves that title. I think similar to Inception, where there are things about this movie where it should be one way and it would be amazing if Nolan just leaned into that. And I think the desire to make a gritty, grounded superhero movie really takes away from this and its potential to be something that is so amazingly fun as a comic book movie, similar to ways that Spider-Man 2, I think, is the best comic book movie of all time because it really leans into the fun of adapting that particular medium. And like when this movie's doing that, it's amazing. Heath Ledger playing the Joker the way that he does in all of the fun, kooky, crazy ways that he does is incredible. The set piece in the middle of the movie where that truck like flips up in the middle of the street and like the sound drops for a second before it falls is incredible. But there's so much around this movie where it's like, oh, we're making a crime thriller and I want to remake Michael Mann's Heat. And I'm just going to say it now. That opening scene sucks. That opening scene has no juice whatsoever. It is a bad.
That's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
knew that was
it's a
coming.
bad heist scene. It's a bad heist scene. It does not have the juice that it thinks it has. It is not Michael Mann light. I think that the best action sequence within this movie, the best set piece in this movie, is that chase scene in the middle. And I think the opening scene gets a little too much credit for what it actually is.
I think the opening scene is way better. The chase scene, I like the truck flipping. It's interrupted way too often with like police following with like random interjections like, did you just see that? Like all this garbage.
Yeah, man.
Like,
that's what cops are supposed to do in comic book movies. They're supposed to be bumbling idiots while the superhero actually saves the day.
It ruins the scene to have like random interjections of dialogue. Just like show me what's happening.
It's still a very exciting set piece, and I think it's the best part of the movie. The best singular scene in the movie, I would say.
Well, we might be able to agree on a tier ranking despite disliking different parts of this movie.
I will say that upon rewatch of this movie, without getting too political, it is very much a product of its time of like late Bush administration state of the world. So watching it now, it does kind of feel like, like it doesn't fit as neatly with like our current times, or even like I think when I rewatched this, it was like during the pandemic, and I definitely felt more of a sense of like, it does feel like this like anxiety about the surveillance state, but the surveillance state is actually fine when the good people use it. Like, I mean, I don't know how neatly a rewatch will feel to modern audiences now because of some of those themes too. Like, I'm not saying that affects the overall story, but it did affect my rewatch experience when I rewatched it. I still think it's largely a solid movie, but there are parts of it that are kind of weak for me.
How do you feel about the opening scene?
I think the opening scene is fine. I don't think it's like literally when you guys were talking about it, I was racking my brain being like, what's the opening scene? So clearly it didn't make that much of an impression on me.
Each Joker has been killed to kill the other Joker off.
Yeah, I remember it now.
Yeah.
And driving the school bus into the whatever. Anyway, my takeaway from this movie was really I was pretty much just like fully on board with everything going on. Pretty much up until the whole deal with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Harvey Dent. I can't remember Maggie Gyllenhaal's character's name off the top. Both
Rachel.
being Rachel. Thank you.
Where is she?
Where's
Rachel? Where is she?
All the way up to that point, and then including the whole completion of that. and the creation of Harvey Dent as like Two-Face. And then the movie just kind of keeps going, and at that point I started to lose a little bit. I felt like it
Hmm.
started to lose a little bit of its traction for me. And
I
I believe
I
that's
remember
what
actually,
the
becomes
I think it's quite clever how this movie does its character arcs with Harvey Dent really having the big arc in the movie being like a tertiary character. It sort of works for me, and I sort of like the Two-Face stuff. Uh if you're gonna introduce a second villain to your superhero movie, they need to be distinct and not have a lot to do so that it doesn't get bloated. And I think it works pretty well in
That's
how
actually
it
a
does
great
that.
call.
Yeah.
I don't know that there are many other superhero movies, Brian, that reveal or introduce the second villain character this late in the movie. And I
Mhm.
think that's like one of the big strengths of this,
Hmm.
um, for sure.
It's
it's
handled
also been
very
a
well.
while since I haven't seen this either in a little while. The end scene, when I think about it, with Joker, like what the folks are on the boat and Batman can are there, whatever whatever that end scene is, it felt, I don't know, for some reason that part to me just didn't work as well. Like it started to feel
Oh, it's terrible.
it
Chris
felt
Nolan
very
couldn't write a convict to save his life. My
it
goodness.
felt
The
But
it
convict with the heart
weirdly
of gold who throws the keys off of the boat. Oh
I think
gosh.
that that's
It's
that's
terrible.
really to Val's point. Like this is the most late Bush era movie of all time. Like
Yeah, yeah.
we have to remember where we were as a country and a society when this movie came out, and like
Yeah.
this came out at the perfect time to have the kind of stranglehold on us that it did, especially with the Joker character being this agent of chaos and Batman being something that restores order. Like we were still looking to
Hmm.
restore order, something that resembled normalcy. This came out what, a few months before, like while we were in the midst of the '08 financial crisis. Like we were really still looking for a lot of that stability, and to have someone like Batman restore that for us through the surveillance state, like yeah, this is a product of its time in ways that, I mean, there are a lot of movies that also serve as products of their time that maybe age in questionable ways the way that this one does, but like it makes sense that it was the massive hit that it was based
It's
on that alone.
totally unrelated to that, but I do want to mention that like Rachel as a character is recast in this movie. Um,
Women don't matter.
so we didn't even talk about Katie Holmes in the
They're
first
all
movie because
interchangeable.
she's
Yeah.
very much nothing. I think that just like Maggie Gyllenhaal is a better actress, so people are like, well, she's nothing in this movie, but she's at least like a more palatable nothing.
Yeah,
And Katie Holmes was like straight
uh,
up unpalatable in some of
but
the
she was a
scenes.
pretty or nothing. Have you ever
Mm.
I
seen
mean,
the
I guess
memes
that's
of like
subjectivity at the end of the day.
there are memes about like the idea of like Batman, you know, burning Gotham to the ground in order to save Maggie Gyllenhaal, which is like a very rude um comment about her
I
appearance. Where the meme is like, fuck it, dude, whatever, Joker, like let the whole city burn. I don't give a shit about Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I was gonna
Rude.
ask
She
y'all.
is a
I
very
wanted to
beautiful
ask,
woman.
and it's because it's been a while. Maybe this is not a fair thing because again, I haven't seen it in a while. But the end thing again with Joker and the boat and all that. When I remember when I was watching it, it was like the first time in that movie where I felt like we went from, because all the Joker stuff was so great. When I was watching that, I was like, this feels way more in line with like Spider-Man, Green Goblin type deal. Maybe
Mm.
because we had
Yeah.
just been seeing like we just had like the whole Spider-Man, Green Goblin. Are you gonna save this bus of people? Or are you gonna save your girlfriend? Kind of deal. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The citizen involvement feels very Spider-Man to me, and it just didn't
Hmm.
work as well with the Batman.
Yeah.
That's the same as the
Also,
Dent Rachel saving scene.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
I
the
think
Joker's whole thing. He's chaos. He's there to inject
Mhm.
chaos in a
I
world
think
that needs order.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Mm.
I think that especially now that we have the Batman to compare this to with the Riddler, and him being this force of chaos, it is kind of like, oh, you know, I don't know. I can't help but compare the Dark Knight to the Batman, because I think that the Batman does things so much better in like pretty much every way, honestly, when it comes to characters, particularly.
It's both more gritty and grounded and more down to be a silly comic book movie at the
It
same
is.
time.
Absolutely, 100%.
I love emo Batman riding around town listening to Nirvana. That's hilarious.
I love Detective Batman. Like, show us
detective
finding
stuff is fun.
clues. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. All right, where are we gonna put this?
I think B tier
B.
for me.
I was gonna say B tier, but I could be persuaded to A if like Bryan
Nah,
feels
B-
like
B
super
tier is
strong.
good. Yeah, that feels about right to me.
Leave it
do
in
have a-
C. Fuck it.
I do have a question though before we move on to like list adjustment. If we had to like predict the future of where the Odyssey would lie on this list, I kind of want to hear everybody's like prediction for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think my
I'm
hope diction.
Go ahead.
It's more of a hope diction. I mean, because I can only ever enter the next film just hoping that Nolan does his best work ever, and that it's the masterpiece and the defining work of his career. Because I like it when movies are good, so I'm holding out hope that this is just going to be the best thing ever. Probably more like A tier, but it could go really bad. I could see it going very badly, but for now, I mean I would say maybe A.
How about Raph, Bryan, and then I'll go last.
Yeah, I kind of see the Odyssey trending towards being a Dunkirk style movie for me, where because of my Nolan skepticism, I feel like I tend to enjoy movies of his that others don't enjoy a little bit more. So I think the Odyssey, it seems like it's trending towards folks not really digging it as much as some of his other stuff. And I think that I if it's gonna play out the way that I think it's gonna play out, then I can totally see myself really, really vibing with it in a lot of ways. From the trailers, it seems like Pattinson's doing some cool stuff.
You're saying that you're gonna wait to see how people respond, and if they like it,
No,
then
no,
you'll
no, no, no,
decide
no.
to dislike
No,
it, and if
I'm
they
saying
dislike it, then you'll decide.
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying based on the trailers that I'm seeing and how I think the movie might play out based on that, I think that it's going to be something that people don't respond to in a certain way, but I think it will be a movie that a Christopher Nolan movie that that I respond to because it includes the Christopher Nolan things that I enjoy.
That you
And I
enjoy.
think like Dunkirk, I think that that's a movie where it features a lot of the things that I enjoy about his filmmaking that don't necessarily translate to what the masses might think. But then there are also movies that I dislike that the masses dislike. I don't think anyone likes Tenet, you know? And I think that everyone, for the most part, likes Memento, and I love Memento.
That's good. Yeah, I feel optimistic because he's not doing an original story. The Odyssey is a good story. I think it's well suited to what he does, well, with lots of set pieces. So I think it'll probably be good, but we'll wait to see the movie itself to know for sure, you know?
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of right in the middle on this because my partner recently read The Odyssey, the book. And he, after reading it, was like, I don't want to see this movie. And the main reason he gave was he was like, Odysseus is a yapper. Like, all he does is talk. And Nolan isn't like exactly a dialogue genius. And the dialogue that I've seen in the trailers is kind of ass. That being said, I think the set pieces look amazing. I think the soundtrack is going to be all time great, fantastic soundtrack. It really depends for me on where he goes with it. I mean, the Odyssey as a book, it seems to me, is not a very easily adaptable work. So I'm gonna go like C tier, like right in the middle.
Mm.
Like I don't know if this will be really
Interesting.
bad, but I don't know if it'll be really good either. Some things that look bad, but some things that look good. I don't know.
I think we're going to focus more on Pattinson and Hathaway than Odysseus himself. And
That would
I'm
be
interested to see how he cuts it all together. But based on I don't know if it's the last trailer or the second to last trailer, it seems like Pattinson's gonna be given a lot to do, and I'm interested in seeing how it is that plays out. I just looked up who wrote it, and it looks like Nolan is the sole credited screenwriter. I was hoping that there would be someone else that could maybe help with some of the lack of character intrigue that we sometimes see in Nolan movies. But yeah, I think because it's like such a big story and there's so many different ways that he can go about adapting it, like we know that he's not going to do a straightforward adaptation of
yeah.
the source material, that I think there's like wiggle room for him to make a version of this story that like really works for his sensibilities.
I agree with that. And I think it really just depends on if he does or not. Like, I think there is a world where he makes a version of this that plays to his strengths and is really, really successful. And I think there is a version of this where he goes the interstellar route and he's like, I'm going to tell this emotional story between Odysseus and Penelope about their love story. And it's just going to go south really fast.
Before we move off of the Odyssey, I do have one more rant.
All right, give it to us.
I'm interested in seeing the Odyssey. I think we're all interested in seeing the Odyssey.
Yeah.
The marketing, I'm excited that it's the first movie ever to be shot entirely in IMAX. But the marketing around this movie about the formats has become annoying. And specifically a promotion that's happening with Letterboxd, and I don't blame Letterboxd for this, but they're going to have like a punch card where you can get a punch card to see it in all the different, it's like 6 formats it'll be shown in.
No, I don't have that kind of money.
I don't need to see the movie in 6 different formats. Not to mention I'm in rural Alabama. I don't have 2 or 3 of those formats anywhere near me. So, but regardless, what are we doing? Who's going to see the Odyssey 6 times? I mean, like, yeah, I saw it in IMAX 35 millimeter, but I really need to go and see it again in a regular ass format, uh, because I need this punch card filled. And also, it's built for IMAX. So if you see it in IMAX, why not just see it? And if you want to see it again, why not just go to IMAX again? What is the point of see it in every different format? That's just stupid. It's just
Maybe not
dumb.
every single format, but I do think that there is something kind of interesting to experiencing a movie in all the different formats, right? Like Oppenheimer was also something that was marketed as you got to go see it in 70 millimeter IMAX if you have the opportunity to, because that's the way that it's intended to be seen. But I think that that movie reads very well in that format and on your TV on TNT with commercial breaks. So like maybe the Odyssey is something that reads really well in a standard screening, like not 35 millimeter, not an IMAX format, or maybe it's something where you see it in that format first and then you go see it in 35 IMAX and you're like, wow, this really enhanced my viewing experience. And I think like understanding the difference between those formats and how it is that you respond to the movie can be kind of interesting. Maybe the punch card is a little hokey in doing that, but I do think that there's something to that for sure. Like we all have experienced movies, like even older movies where there's like a special, you know, re-release of it in theaters and you go see Jaws on the big screen and you're like, oh my God, yeah, this is so much cooler seeing this on a big screen in a crowded room than it was seeing it, you know, on my couch on a tube TV or whatever. And I
I
think
think
even the slight variations in the format for the Odyssey might inform how it is that people react to it or respond to it.
I think for a time the marketing just emphasized the formatting of the movie over the movie, which was like, I was like, why are we stop talking
Dude,
about
it
the
worked for
formatting?
Sinners.
I
That
mean,
video
the other
of
the other concern I have about the formatting issue is something that Tom Holland said, which hopefully everything worked out really well. But because when you're shooting entirely in IMAX, you have very limited amount of time that you can shoot before you have to change. And so like there's like a long scene apparently between Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway where they had to like pause mid scene where it would normally be just like a one take kind of scene and like change out the film roll and then like pick up and just break the continuity. And I'm like, I wonder if some of the I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure the editing of that will all be great and fine. But it's
Well,
one of those things where it's like, could you lose some of the just fluidity that you normally would have just because you're trying to do this on IMAX? I don't know.
This might
It's
break your
something
brain, Jacob, but sometimes scenes are cut together from different takes in
I
movies that you
understand that.
know and
That's
love.
why I said. That's why I followed up with the clarifier there. But it's one of those things where if normally you would shoot, I mean, obviously you take different takes and edit them together. I understand all that, but like if it interrupted the actual flow on the set, because it sounds like it was something different
That's
than
something that happens
normal.
all the time. I don't think it's unique to this movie at all.
but
Anyway.
Jacob, what about the popcorn bucket? It's an IMAX camera.
It's kind of cool. I don't dislike IMAX. Popcorn buckets are a whole.
It's $50.
I
think it's a very fair marketing technique. We all know the video of Coogler describing all the different formats to see Sinners and like propelled that movie to be nominated for a zillion Oscars. So if that's how we get people out to the theaters, kind of to Bryan's point at the beginning, like Christopher Nolan is a name that gets gets butts in seats. If that's how we're getting folks into IMAX seats to then see trailers for other movies that they can see in IMAX, and it helps them rediscover their love for like going to the cinemas, that's a win. And I think we as film fans should appreciate that, even if it ends up being another Nolan hack job.
That's a great place to transition to the tier last looks, because I think we all agree whatever gets people to the theater, I really could care less. If it gets
Yeah.
you to the theater, great, go. We need people in theaters, so cool. Okay. Do we want to change anything on this list?
The only thing I'm kind of like, oh, we could change it is now looking at it, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it.
It's funny that The Dark Knight is his one movie that never plays with nonlinear storytelling. I think everything else does.
I don't know. The Following does. I can't remember.
Following definitely does.
Okay.
But
does Insomnia?
The other, I'm not sure about Insomnia, but I don't know if any of the Batman movies do. Well, no. Dark Knight
Batman
Rises
Begins
does.
jumps around a little bit.
It does. It flashes back. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
So
Dark Knight Rises doesn't jump back
doesn't
and
as
forth.
much.
It has like a flashback.
Tenet do it? I don't remember.
Does
Don't think
anybody
about it.
want
We
to
were
still
instructed
move?
not to think about this.
Just feel it.
Just feel it. Okay, there's nothing to feel.
I would put Oppenheimer up a tier. I would.
I think that's the only thing that I'm like, yeah, I could move that up to A. One more thing about Interstellar. I think the thing about Interstellar that makes it worse for me is the fact that like now we have The Martian and Project Hail Mary, which are two like big, grand, epic space movies that are just infinitely better in every way. And
Project Hail Mary is better than Interstellar, but I honestly, as much as I liked a lot of Project Hail Mary, just lacked gravitas in a lot of the same ways Interstellar did for me. Where I just couldn't bring my. It was, mostly because Grace doesn't really have any connection until he meets Rocky. I couldn't. But
yeah,
anyway,
I agree with that. But you get character development, whereas like in Interstellar, it's just like this is man number one and this is woman number one. And she's in love with man number two, and like, who cares?
Also, Cooper's here.
I'm never gonna get over that.
Sunshine
Bryan,
is the secret S tier space movie.
Are we
Sunshine.
ready?
The Danny
That's
Boyle.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's Danny Boyle.
No,
Yeah.
don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't
Don't
do
do it.
Are we?
Don't
Brian,
do
are
it.
you good with putting Oppenheimer up
Raph,
into the A
Don't do it.
tier?
you just need to like
Don't do it.
accept
do it.
that you're a little bit wrong about this one.
Don't do
Yeah,
it.
you can be wrong. It's okay. It's
No.
okay.
I will.
You can create your own tier list if you want and post
And
it
put
in
it in F
protest.
tier.
Well, okay, so we're calling them B tiers, but to me, Inception, Dark Knight, and Oppenheimer very much so all exist within the same realm of these are movies that if Nolan allowed the movie to come to him instead of trying to like force a version of the movie onto us, would have been very amazing. And I think Dunkirk and The Prestige kind of have that ease of being the movie that they should be. And that to me is what makes them A tier and separates them from Oppenheimer, Inception, and The Dark Knight, which I think are all like very solid movies that are just sort of not quite at the level that they could be. They're not fully realized, if that makes sense. Kind of like Val's tequila drink.
Are we creating an A- tier that's just for Oppenheimer?
No, we can disagree, and Raph can be
I'm
wrong
fine with
about
that,
this
honestly.
without adding another tier. Yeah.
I can be wrong about this.
We don't need to. Yeah, you can be wrong, and Oppenheimer can be an A tier. It's
But-
okay.
Well, no, if Oppenheimer is an A tier, then the list is wrong. I walk away still correct in my
You can
thoughts
make
and
your own
feelings.
tier, yeah, and we can. Yeah, that can live somewhere that's not on the official screen.
You could make your
YouTube
own
channel.
tier, and it can also exist elsewhere.
I am fine with
What the
trampling over
hell?
Raph and putting it in A tier.
Can't
I
we
think
could all make our own lists and all make our own tiers. That
this.
totally
the
negates
point,
I'm just
Raph.
saying,
This is the
the
group
rest
list.
of us agree that it should be
This
an
is
A tier.
this is the group list, and
Oops.
so it's
If
not reflective
all of you guys
your.
agree to jump off a bridge, that means I have to jump off the bridge too. No, I'm gonna stay.
I mean, pretty
gonna-
much, yeah.
I'm gonna stay
Yeah.
not jumped off the bridge and knowing that Oppenheimer isn't an A tier movie.
Okay, while we're discussing that, I think now that we have the Dark Knight in B tier, I feel like Batman Begins is good in C tier. I feel like having
That
those
seems fine.
movies
Yeah.
tiered in that way is correct.
Yeah.
That's
the
fine.
Dark Knight
I
feels
would
like the
still-
best of the bunch.
Look, I could argue that Batman Begins also belongs in B tier with those movies, but I think it's fine in C tier. I don't have like any real strong feelings towards Batman Begins. I think my strong feelings are more towards Inception and The Dark Knight and Oppenheimer not being an A tier movie. But that's totally fine. Maybe I'll rewatch it and maybe my mind will be changed. I feel like every time I watch that movie, I have a different takeaway, kind of similar to Inception and Dark Knight. But yeah,
Look, guys, let's not lose
If
sight
you
of
want
what's
to add like a footnote to the Oppenheimer that says Raph protests
I don't think that's possible.
inclusion in A
Look,
tier,
we gotta
I
we can't lose
agree
sight
with-
of what's
Hey,
with
this
that.
is
We
being
can't lose sight of
recorded. It's
what's-
been memorialized.
we can't lose sight
I
of
think
what's
the audience
important.
knows where I stand, and history will be on my side.
Remember what's important. We have Interstellar at F.
Yeah,
Which
I
is
was so
going
scared
to-
somebody
am
was going to
very
be like
happy with-
Interstellar
yeah.
S tier, and I was going to be like
Interstellar
genuinely.
and Tenet being at the bottom because they're his worst movies for sure.
Yeah, I told somebody that like I thought Tenet was horrible, and they were like, "Well, the whole movie is a temporal sphincter or whatever," and I was like, "I was like, what the hell does that mean? I mean, like none of this movie means anything.
It's a
I
sphincter.
hate it." Pincer, temporal pincer, whatever.
I just wish there was more with like the Diet Coke of it all.
Was there a
Robert
lot of
Pattinson.
Diet Coke in that movie?
There's like one scene where Robert Pattinson's like, "You don't actually like Diet Coke" or something, and John David Washington's like, "Yes, I do."
I don't
It's like-
remember that.
It's like part of their cute little bromance.
I mean, cute, but like I also wish that they had like a bromance that was written.
Yeah. You know
if
what?
they had sex, it would be a better movie.
Gay sex
Yeah.
makes movies better.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Shout out to that.
I need to go to bed.
I think most of these
Yeah.
movies would be made better with a little bit of sex.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
For
We should
more
have
on
had a little
that-
bit of sex in Memento, honestly.
I
We
thought you were
need a
going to say
little
on this
bit.
episode of Wasteland After Dark, we should have had more
No.
sex.
No. In Memento as a treat.
Yeah, Bryan still has a no nudity clause in his contract, so
I do. Yeah.
The main character in Memento should have looked at a Polaroid of him and his wife having sex quizzically and like, and
Who's
then
the
on the back
person
it
who
should say,
took the,
it should say, "This is sex."
yeah.
And he's like,
Somebody
don't
else is
remember what
taking the
that's like.
Polaroid from the cuck chair?
that would have been before his accident, so he would remember that though. So then he's just a creep who's taking pictures of him and his wife having sex.
"Well,
Is
maybe
it
it's not his
creepy if
wife."
you're in the cuck chair?
It's definitely Joey Pants in the cuck chair. Crazy that this movie has 2 of the stars of The Matrix in it.
He
It does.
cast them after seeing The Matrix. Yeah, it was like off
Yeah.
the hype of The Matrix and like, let's be in this cool new indie sort of thing. They're both great in it. Maybe
Great movie.
I mean, Joey Pants definitely gets more to do in this than he did in The Matrix, and
Mhm.
Carrie Ann Moss is like equally as good and interesting and very against type for what she was doing in The Matrix. So
She's underrated, I think, by and large. I mean, just she's also done voice acting in video games, and she's just really, really underrated, in my opinion.
yeah, I wish she had more of a career after The Matrix than
Mhm.
Yeah.
she did.
She's in Mass Effect 3.
Oh,
Guys, when the Odyssey comes out, go watch it in all formats and then watch or go read Mr. Thomas Reese. He's doing the review on Screen Age Wasteland. So
yeah.
very
Yeah.
excited to see what he's going to have to say about that one. I'm surprised we haven't done a Christopher Nolan month, but this
Yeah.
would be a fun part of that because I do think most people at the Wasteland are fans of Sir Christopher Nolan, which again, I understand. I just think it's necessary to bring him down a peg because there are so many other things that we can be enjoying. And I think that there is a lot to enjoy in his movies, but I think by overhyping him in the ways that his movies are overhyped, we are losing out in some of the other areas that we could be enjoying. But
Yeah.
any
I agree.
other reviews, any other non-Nolan related reviews that you guys are writing?
Just my typical TV movies to stream list, which I'm not writing very much right now because I'm in the very busy season at work. I'm taking like 70, 80 calls a day. So I will hopefully be writing more stuff in the future, but for the summer, I'm kind of light on writing.
I have
But-
been behind. I'm supposed to write a review for Pressure and Furious, and I still have not done so, but those will come up soon.
I just remembered I did write the canon post for Ben-Hur. So amazing movie. Go read that if you're interested.
I gonna write a review for The Invite, assuming it ever comes to theaters near here. So we'll see about that, but excited for that one.
Noise. I see Jacob has the new Spider-Man movie. Speaking of mid, at the end of this month. So that will be
Harsh.
something. Not Jacob's writing. Jacob's writing is great. The movie, I assume, will be mid. And I think there also might be some Saw coverage of Fantasia Fest later this month,
That'll
which
be
should
fun.
be fun.
Hell yeah.
Noise, and there will be another Wasteland After Dark. It seems like we're going monthly with these releases.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see you guys back in August for who knows what. If you have thoughts
Yeah.
about what
Drop
our
in
next
the
topic
comments
should
if
be,
you have ideas.
drop
I
them.
have a thought, and we're going to talk about it off video, but
Hell yeah.
in one moment.
Noise.
Hmm.
Awesome. I guess we did it. We ranked Nolan. I saw that Odyssey ended up in A tier, and you know what? I will put my sword down and fly to Bryan's house and the next
This is
Wasteland
yeah.
After Dark is going to be me and Bryan fist fighting over Oppenheimer.
This is exactly what I was hoping for. I was really hoping that someone would take the bait on this episode. So thank you for being willing to argue with me a little bit here, Raph.
Yeah,
Makes
I mean,
tremendous
this wouldn't
content, you know.
this wouldn't be fun if we all agreed, and we agreed on pretty much
Exactly.
everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
We're too
Oppenheimer
agreeable here.
if
Need a little
Oppenheimer
bit contention.
between B and A tier is our biggest disagreement, then
Yeah, that's not too bad actually.
yeah, we gotta
made a good list.
we gotta up the ante next time. Sweet. I think we're good to call it. I'm out of whiskey, so about ready.